Chapter 851. Against the Plain-Dressed Woman. Why were the experts of the fifth dimension unable to obtain the World Prison Pagoda? The reason was because of the plain-dressed woman. She was the one who had been obstructing the experts of the fifth dimension. Without her, Yi Xian would not have been able to live until now. It could be said that the plain-dressed woman was their greatest enemy. And they were very clear that this woman was not easy to kill because they had already failed once. On the battlefield, Lian Qian's expression was gloomy the entire time. Xueqi and the rest simply did not know the situation of the fifth dimension. The people of that universe could not be compared to the people of the fourth dimension. Especially the Myriad Dimensions Academy. In the past, the Myriad Dimensions Academy could be said to be the most powerful force in the entire fifth dimension. Naturally, the members of the Myriad Dimensions Academy were all students and did not participate in worldly affairs. Because of this, the status of the Myriad Dimensions Academy in the fifth dimension was very high. She knew that the plain-dressed woman was very strong, but the Myriad Dimensions Academy was not weak either. Especially Chen Tian and that female teacher. Their strength could only be described as unfathomable. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian with worry in her eyes. She naturally did not want anything to happen to Yi Xian. Her goal was to find her master, and this World Prison Pagoda was the key to finding her master. And if this World Prison Pagoda fell into Chen Tian's hands, would Chen Tian go and find her master? If it was a long time ago he might have. But now, she was very clear that Chen Tian definitely would not, because power was very tempting. Chen Tian was now the master of the Myriad Dimensions Academy, so he would not go and find his master. Moreover, if the World Prison Pagoda fell into Chen Tian's hands, the two sisters would once again be imprisoned in the pagoda. This was because Chen Tian would definitely not give up on their Dao laws. If they gathered their Dao laws, their might would be extremely terrifying. One must know that in the past, when the two sisters joined forces with the World Prison Pagoda, they fought against the three swordsmen. Although they lost, it was not because they and the World Prison Pagoda were weak, but because the three swordsmen were too strong. Therefore, if the World Prison Pagoda fell into Chen Tian's hands, it would be difficult for them to escape their fate. When they had followed the Prophet had never treated them as subordinates, but if they fell into the hands of Chen Tian. Thinking of this, Lian Qian opened her palm and the World Prison Pagoda suddenly appeared in her palm. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian beside her. "I'll buy you some time. Not much, maybe 2 or 3 months." As her voice fell, Lian Qian suddenly transformed into a beam of white light and shot up into the sky. Very quickly, she arrived in front of the black region. She looked at the black region in front of her, then at the World Prison Pagoda in her hands. She slowly closed her eyes. "Haven't you always been curious about what Dao Law I am?" Below, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Lian Qian. The corners of Lian Qian's mouth lifted slightly. "You'll know soon enough." With that, she suddenly opened her eyes. "In the name of the pagoda, seal." The World Prison Pagoda in her hands trembled violently. In the next moment, countless golden runes suddenly flew out of Lian Qian's body. Very quickly, these golden runes were like tiny butterflies that flew towards the black region. Soon, these golden runes formed a swastika character. And at this moment, a giant finger suddenly descended from the black region. This giant finger directly bombarded the swastika character. Boom! The swastika character trembled violently, but it did not shatter. On the contrary, the giant finger directly exploded. However, behind this giant finger, a giant black hand suddenly stretched out. Below, Lian Qian slowly closed her eyes. "Seal the heavens and earth." As her voice fell, she suddenly opened her eyes. From within her body, a golden pillar of light suddenly shot up into the sky. This golden pillar of light directly entered the swastika character. The swastika character trembled violently and directly imprinted itself into the black region. Qing, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From this moment onwards, Yi Xian's position as crown prince is removed. Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man dressed in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. "Why?" At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her two small hands were tightly gripping the corners of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yiling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. This time, when she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yiling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, "Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you remove his title for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yiling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting? Leave." Yiling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the Great Elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. It is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove his title. This is really unfair. Impudent." The Great Elder suddenly raged. "Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this moment, the new Crown Prince Yilang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Great Elder said coldly, "Then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new Crown Prince Yilang. He knew that this was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yilang inherits the title of Crown Prince. What are you yelling about?" With that, he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. A crisp sound of the slap was heard. The right side of Yiling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She just covered her cheek with her hand. Yilang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "I'm Zhang Mu. Greetings, Crown Prince." Yilang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the Crown Prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'm willing to go through fire and water for the Crown Prince." Yilang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yiling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking toward the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yilang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yilang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yilang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, "Your man." As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian ignored Zhang Mu and walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Ching Ching. Yi Clan. Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be removed, and Yi Lang shall take over. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you remove him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. Why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look directly at the great elder. However, she did not leave, and instead mustered up her courage to enter the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and his life is uncertain. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove him from his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning. The great elder coldly replied. Then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang is the heir, and it is the wish of everyone. What are you shouting about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there, and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man." As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage, and in the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 852. I beg you to be stronger. Hearing the woman's words, the smile on Chen Tian's face suddenly disappeared. The woman was arrogant? Arrogant? Supercilious? Possibly both. But his intuition told him that the woman in front of him was a bit stronger than they had expected. Of course, at this moment, he had no way of retreating. Moreover, there was no need for him to do so. All these years, what had Chen Tian not seen before? How could he retreat just because of one sentence from the woman in front of him? Of course, facing the woman in front of him, he was even more cautious. At this time, the woman in the distance suddenly said, "Start your performance?" Chen Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress. The woman in the plain dress had a calm expression. In her limpid eyes, there was not a trace of ripple. This was a special person. Chen Tian chuckled. To be honest, you surprised many of us because we never thought that a strong person like you would appear in the four-dimensional universe. The woman in the plain dress looked at Chen Tian. As a person from the five-dimensional universe, do you have a sense of superiority? Chen Tian laughed. No, because we never compare ourselves with you four-dimensional people. Speaking up to here, he suddenly paused and then said, "Speaking of which, it seems that we do have a sense of superiority. However, isn't this normal? For example, when you face a race that is more backward than you, don't you also have a sense of superiority?" The woman in the plain dress said, "Superiority comes from inferiority. Finding a sense of superiority from those who are weaker than you is incompetent." Chen Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress. "In front of me, don't you also have a sense of superiority? What, do you also have inferiority and are incompetent?" The corner of the woman's mouth slightly raised. Superiority? Have you ever seen a person have a sense of superiority when facing an ant? Hearing this, Chen Tian narrowed his eyes. Ant. The woman in the plain dress in front of him actually treated him as an ant. Chen Tian laughed. He laughed somewhat crazily. In this life, no one has ever said that I am as weak as an ant. You are the first. The plain-dressed woman slowly walked towards Chen Tian. If you don't start your performance, then you will lose this chance. Chen Tian looked at the plain-dressed woman and said with a smile, "Come, let me see exactly how strong you are." As soon as he finished speaking, his palm suddenly opened, and a thick ancient book suddenly appeared in his hand. Chen Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress and smiled. "Do you dare to enter the book and fight with us?" The woman in the plain dress looked at the ancient book. The title of the book was Book Realm. The plainly dressed woman nodded. "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of sword light and entered the book. The Book Realm. Chen Tian smiled faintly and entered the world of books. The woman in the plain dress appeared in a huge study room. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with bookshelves, with no end in sight. At this moment, Chen Tian appeared not too far away from the woman in the plain dress. He looked at the woman in the plain dress and smiled. Book realm with books as the boundary. This was created by teacher many years ago, and it can be used to suppress another's realm through books. Moreover, within this world, all divine arts can't be used. As soon as he finished speaking, the books on the surrounding bookshelves suddenly flipped open page by page. Subsequently, countless tiny words flew out from the books, and these words directly arrived above the woman in the plain dress. Subsequently, a mysterious force directly enveloped the woman in the plain dress. Suppress one's realm. However, the woman in the plain dress's expression was extremely calm. Realm? That was a set of rules that she had once set, and she was no longer within the scope of the rules. To put it simply, she had already jumped out of the scope of realm. At this moment, 4 old men suddenly appeared around the woman in the plain dress. The 4 old men were all dressed in white robes, and each of them held a thick black ancient book in their hands. The four of them stared at the woman in the plain dress, and they incessantly muttered something. Very soon, the black ancient book in their hands suddenly flipped open, and blood-red words flew out from the book. These words were like four threads that converged towards the woman in the plain dress from four directions. These words contained an extremely powerful force, and it could be said that if these words appeared in the outside world, they could easily destroy a piece of the starry sky. And at this moment, these words were endless. This time, the Myriad-Dimensional Academy was serious. They didn't dare to be careless. After all, they had already failed before. Therefore, they were extremely cautious towards the woman in the plain dress. However, these words stopped half a zhang away from the woman in the plain dress. Seeing this scene, Chen Tian, who was not far away, narrowed his eyes, and the four old men's expressions became even more solemn. At this moment, Chen Tian suddenly said, "Kill." As soon as he said that, the space around the woman in the plain dress suddenly split open, and then four black chains formed by countless black words tore through the air. At the top of these four chains were four extremely hideous demon beasts. These demon beasts were shaped like wolves, and they had extremely long fangs. Their eyes were blood red, and they looked like they were about to devour someone. The woman in the plain dress glanced at the four demon beasts and shook her head. There was unconcealable disappointment in her eyes. "You're wasting my time." As soon as she finished speaking, she lightly snapped her fingers. A ray of sword light appeared. Chi 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 chi. The four demon beasts directly stopped on the spot. Very soon, the four demon beasts became illusory and disappeared. At the same time, the eyes of the four old men nearby were wide open. There was fear in their eyes, and there was a sword mark on their throats. Instant kill. Not far away, Chen Tian stared at the woman in the plain dress. At this moment, his fists were already clenched tightly. The woman in the plain dress looked around and said softly, "This so-called book realm is barely passable. At least, Master's idea is very interesting. As for power..." At this point she looked at Chen Tian. "You want to use this thing to kill me? May I ask, are you retarded?" Chen Tian suddenly smiled. "Don't worry, there's more." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly formed a seal with both hands, and a moment later he suddenly roared, "Destroy!" Boom! A bookshelf suddenly exploded behind Chen Tian, and then a dark red destroy character floated out. The moment this destroy character appeared, the entire book realm actually trembled slightly. It was too powerful. The woman in the plain dress looked at the destroy character. At this moment, Chen Tian suddenly roared, "Go!" However, the destroy character only trembled and did not move. Chen Tian was stunned. "What's going on?" At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly said, "Come here." The destroy character hesitated for a moment before it directly floated to the woman in the plain dress. It was trembling. Fear. Seeing this scene, Chen Tian's hands began to tremble. The woman in the plain dress glanced at the destroy character in front of her. A character has cultivated a spirit, and it is an extreme destruction spirit. This is rare. I will find a new master for you. How about it? The destroy character trembled slightly. It moved. The woman in the plain dress was expressionless. Not willing? The destroy character suddenly trembled violently. The woman in the plain dress nodded. "It's good that you are willing. Follow him well, and in the future, I will give you a good fortune." After saying that, she directly kept the destroy character. Then, she looked at Chen Tian. "Are there any other treasures?" Chen Tian stared at the woman in the plain dress. "Why?" The woman in the plain dress said, "You mean this character has a spirit?" Chen Tian said, "Yes." The woman in the plain dress smiled. "Because it is smarter than you." As she said that, she suddenly looked behind Chen Tian to the right. She slightly frowned, and with a point of her finger, a ray of sword light directly slashed at the bookshelf. Boom! A powerful force burst forth from the bookshelf. Soon, a golden word, break, floated out. The woman in the plain dress looked at the golden destroy character and said, "Come here." The destroy character trembled slightly, but it did not go over. The woman in the plain dress squinted her eyes, and a ray of sword light flew out from her eyes. In the distance, the destroy character directly exploded and turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, Chen Tian, who was not far away, had a face full of shock. "You?" As for the woman in the plain dress, the blood-red destroy character in her hand, it was trembling in fear. The woman in the plain dress looked at Chen Tian, and Chen Tian's body gradually became illusory. Doppelganger. This was also his doppelganger. His main body did not come down, and he did not dare to come down, because his main body still needed to guard the Myriad Dimensions Academy. The woman in the plain dress suddenly said, "Originally, the life and death of this four-dimensional universe had nothing to do with me. However, since my brother chose to save this four-dimensional universe, then..." As she said that, she walked in front of Chen Tian and looked at Chen Tian. "From now on, this four-dimensional universe is under my protection. Go back and tell the people of the fifth dimension that you can come at me. If you use 2 moves, it will be my loss." After saying that, she disappeared, and the book realm disappeared together with her. In the battlefield, Chen Tian was silent, and his body became more and more illusory. He knew that they had seriously underestimated the woman's strength. But here came the question. Just how strong was she? Even the book realm left by his teacher could not do anything to this woman. How strong was she? There was no answer. Soon, Chen Tian completely disappeared. In the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress looked at the thick book realm in her hand. "Find him and follow him. In the future, I will give you a fortune." The book realm slightly trembled, then turned into a ray of black light and disappeared into the horizon. Looking at the book realm at the end of the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress was silent for a moment, then she turned and left. In the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress slowly walked. Her figure became smaller and smaller at the end of the starry sky, looking somewhat lonely. In a certain academy, in a pavilion, a middle-aged man suddenly opened his eyes. Chen Tian. It was not a doppelganger, but his main body. Chen Tian got up and walked to the side. He lowered his head and looked at the pool in front of him. After a moment, he smiled. "Do you think I'm scared? Even my teacher didn't dare to call himself invincible in the past. What ability do you have?" As he said that, he slowly closed his eyes. "Don't you want to fight? Then I will have a good fight with you. Pass down the order to arrest Yi Xian." Chapter 853. The Four-Dimensional Universe. After Yi Xian left the dual realm sky, he returned to the northern region. Yi Xian immediately went to the Moke clan. The Moke clan had now moved to Tianjiang City. They had their own territory in Tianjiang City. The Moke clan was developing well and was considered a tyrant in Tianjiang City. Seeing Yi Xian, the great elder of the Moke clan quickly came out and bowed. "King Yi." Yi Xian said softly, "Senior, you don't have to be so polite. Take me to a quiet place." The great elder nodded. "Follow me, King Yi." Soon, the great elder brought Yi Xian to a hall in the Moke clan. There was only Yi Xian and him in the hall. Yi Xian opened his palm and the soul-suppressing sword appeared in his hand. The soul-suppressing sword trembled slightly and Mosie's soul floated out. At this moment, Mosie's soul had condensed a lot and was much stronger than before. Seeing Yi Xian, Mosie smiled. "Did you win?" Yi Xian nodded. "For the time being." Mosie said softly, "For the time being," Yi Xian said. "Brother Mosie, don't worry about this for now. Your priority now is to rebuild your body as soon as possible." Mosie nodded. "All right. Be careful." Yi Xian patted Mosie's shoulder lightly and turned to leave. After Yi Xian left, the great elder said in a deep voice, "It's very serious, right?" Mosie nodded. The great elder hesitated for a moment and said, "You are the hope of our clan." Mosie said softly, "I know. But sometimes, there are many things that have to be done." Saying this, he looked at the great elder. "Uncle, I know what you are thinking. But have you ever thought about the reason why our Moke clan could come this far?" The great elder said, "Because of King Yi." Mosie nodded. "The reason our clansmen have a place to live is because of Brother Yi. As for us, we shouldn't only think about our own benefits. If Brother Yi falls, when the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain intact?" The grand elder shook his head. "Uncle, I was being selfish." Mosie nodded slightly and said softly, "This time my physical body being destroyed is not entirely a bad thing." The great elder hurriedly said, "What's wrong?" Mosie slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared above his soul. Seeing this scene, the grand elder was stunned for a moment before saying in shock, This is the ancestor. After Yi Xian left the Moke clan, he returned to Tianjiang City. In a large hall, Yi Xian gathered the experts of the Black-Yellow Great World. The Shenyuan clan patriarch, the Black-Yellow Master, and the others were all present. Yi Xian looked at the crowd. I believe everyone has heard about the dual realm sky. That's right, now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, people from the fourth dimension can go to the fifth dimension, and experts from the fifth dimension should be able to come to the fourth dimension. Hearing this, the people present were a little excited. The fifth dimension. Not only did the experts from the dual realm sky want to go to the fifth dimension, but the experts from the Black-Yellow Great World also wanted to go to the fifth dimension. That was a whole new universe. Yi Xian glanced at the crowd. Everyone, it is best to temporarily give up on the idea of going to the fifth dimension because they are not friendly. The crowd was silent. Yi Xian said again, the fifth dimension is not friendly. At this moment, the Black-Yellow Master suddenly said, King Yi, was the black gas from before caused by the fifth dimension? Yi Xian nodded. Hearing this, the Black-Yellow Master's face darkened. Do they want to destroy our fourth dimension? Yi Xian said in a low voice. They did have this idea before. The Black-Yellow Master looked at Yi Xian. King Yi, did you stop them? Yi Xian nodded. The Black-Yellow Master looked deeply at Yi Xian. King Ye's strength is unfathomable. The crowd also looked at Yi Xian. They had to admit that the current Yi Xian was becoming more and more unfathomable. Yi Xian said, Today, I called everyone here to tell you about the current situation between our fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. I believe everyone knows that the strength of our fourth dimension is definitely weaker than that of the fifth dimension. Therefore, now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, it is not a good thing for us. Also, I hope that everyone can understand one thing. Don't even think about going to the fifth dimension. If you go now, you will be sending yourself to death. Of course, if anyone wants to go, I won't stop you. He knew that going to the fifth dimension was an irresistible temptation for many people. If he forcefully stopped them, some people might think that he was obstructing their future. No one in the hall spoke. Yi Xian continued, Now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, the experts of the fifth dimension may enter the fourth dimension at any time. Therefore, our current situation is not particularly good. Especially now, the people of the Black-Yellow Great World may be unstable. At this time, we need everyone to work together to stabilize the situation. We can't be the first to panic before others come. The Black-Yellow Master nodded. What King Yi said makes sense. We can't be the first to panic. Yi Xian said, We will be very busy from now on. Everyone, please leave. The crowd in the hall bowed slightly to Yi Xian and then left. However, the Black-Yellow Master did not leave. The Black-Yellow Master walked in front of Yi Xian and looked at Yi Xian. If they really want to destroy our fourth dimension, will we be able to resist? Yi Xian was silent. This was because he could not answer this question. Right now, he was only facing the Myriad Dimensions Academy. However, he was very clear that the Myriad Dimensions Academy was not the only one in the fifth dimension. There were definitely countless other forces, and these forces were very likely to become his enemies. Yi Xian said softly, I don't know. However, don't worry. If they only target me, Yi Xian, Yi Xian, will bear all the consequences. I will not implicate the fourth dimension. The Black-Yellow Master was silent. She could see things further. She knew that there was only one possibility for the fifth dimension to not plunder or conquer the fifth dimension. They had come for the treasure of the fifth dimension. Simply put, the target of the experts of the fifth dimension should be Yi Xian, not the entire fourth dimension. Of course, she did not know that if not for Yi Xian being in the fourth dimension, the fourth dimension would have long ceased to exist. After a while, the Black-Yellow Master left. In the palace, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Breakthrough. After he had swallowed Chen Tian's sword, he had already absorbed the entire sword's power. He did not know what sword it was, but he had to say that it was really a great supplement. Now, he needed some time to comprehend it. What was life-breaking? In the palace, Yi Xian was deep in thought. Outside the palace, in a certain courtyard, there were two women sitting in front of a stone table. They were Lanxiu and Xueqi. Beside them, there was a woman leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. She had a blade of grass in her mouth. Lian Wanli. Now the most monstrous geniuses of the northern region's younger generation, other than Mo Xie and Yi Xian, were all here. Xueqi picked up the teacup on the stone table and took a sip. Then she said, "What do you think?" And Lanxiu did not speak. Lian Wanli shrugged his shoulders. "I can. What do you think?" "Those fellows from the fifth dimension obviously want little Ye's life." And Lanxiu nodded. "Not only do they want to seize the treasure, they want to kill him." Xueqi placed down the teacup and said softly, "I think that we can't just sit there and wait for death." At the side, Lian Wanli's brows rose up. "You want to counterattack?" Xueqi said indifferently, "Why not?" And Lanxiu suddenly said, "Sure." Xueqi glanced in the direction of Yi Xian's room. "He has quite a lot of fortuitous encounters and is getting stronger and stronger. If we follow by his side, the gap between us will get bigger and bigger. I don't want to look up to him in the future." As she spoke, she looked at Lian Wanli and Lanxiu. "Let's go?" The corners of Lian Wanli's mouth curled up. "That is exactly what I want." Xueqi looked at Lanxiu. And Lanxiu said, "Sure." Xueqi said, "Let's go." Lian Wanli suddenly said, "Do you want to say goodbye?" Xueqi said indifferently, "There is no need. Let's go." As soon as she finished speaking, she walked towards the distance. And Lanxiu glanced in the direction of Yi Xian and then followed. Lian Wanli shrugged. "Let's go then." Very quickly, the three girls vanished into the distance. They left in a carefree manner and didn't bid farewell to anyone. On the city wall, Shangguan Xiener and Zhang Jiu looked at the three girls who vanished into the horizon. Zhang Jiu said softly, "I envy them." Shangguan Xian nodded. The talents of Xueqi and the other two weren't weaker than Yi Xian at all. Before this, they had always been by Yi Xian's side. It could be said that their light was overshadowed by Yi Xian. If one disregarded Yi Xian, one would realize that they were actually very outstanding. Now, the three of them decided to go on their own. Obviously, they didn't want to be affected by Yi Xian anymore. Contrast. Simply speaking, the three of them didn't want to be Yi Xian's contrast. At this time, Zhang Jiu chuckled. "They can leave but we can't, and we don't dare to leave." Now, the northern region needed her and Shangguan Xian very much. Because the entire Black-Yellow Great World's affairs were handled by her and Shangguan Xian, and Yi Xian was completely a hands-off shopkeeper. If they left, Yi Xian would definitely be badly battered. Moreover, the two of them didn't have the strength of Xueqi and the other two. If they left the Black-Yellow Great World, it would be very dangerous, not to mention going to the fifth dimension. At this time, Shangguan Xian suddenly said, "Do you want to go to the fifth dimension to have a look?" Zhang Jiu smiled. "Of course. The fifth dimension." As she spoke, she looked up at the end of the horizon and said softly, "I don't know if I have the chance to go in this life." Shangguan Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, the two girls suddenly disappeared. Soon, the two girls appeared in front of a large hall. And in front of the hall stood a man. It was Yi Xian. Zhang Jiu quickly walked in front of Yi Xian and said softly, "You broke through." Yi Xian shook his head. This time, he wasn't able to break through to the life-breaking realm. Just a little bit more. Zhang Jiu nodded slightly. "No rush, take your time." Yi Xian said softly, "I'm going out for a while. I'll have to trouble you here." Zhang Jiu looked at Yi Xian. "Where are you going?" Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. "To find help." After saying that, he directly turned into a sword light and disappeared at the end of the horizon. In the same place, Zhang Jiu said softly, "Say, who do you think he's going to find?" P.S. Recently, the weather has been getting colder and colder. If you're not careful, you'll catch a cold. Brothers, make sure to keep warm. Chapter 854. Yi Xian entered the vast starry sky. He rode on his sword, and the sword light streaked across the starry sky like a shooting star. Yi Xian closed his eyes and sank into deep thought. The removal of the fifth dimension restriction meant that he would now have to face the fifth dimension. Although his strength had greatly increased, he was now facing a peak expert of the fifth dimension, Chen Tian. At this moment, he thought of Chen Tian's strength. The other party was only a clone, yet it could crush him, Xueqi, and the others. What if the main body was here? As he thought of this, Yi Xian slowly clenched his fists. As long as there was life, there would be no battle. Fight. Yi Xian opened his eyes and looked at the distant starry sky. He knew that if he wanted peace, he could only fight. This was his only choice. During his time in Qingqing, he had understood one thing. When facing an enemy, don't think about begging them for pity. This was because the more you did this, the more they would look down on you and bully you. There was only one way to make the other party not dare to bully you. Fight. If your fist was hard enough, the other party would not dare to bully you. At this moment, he thought of his fate. Was everything that had happened to him since he arrived in Qingqing his fate? Did he believe in fate? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Fate. Ordinary people said that one's fate was in their own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. He also said that his fate was in his own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. However, it was often in the hands of fate. For example, if Yi Ling had left. At that time, what could he have done? He could not have done anything. For example, when facing Chen Tian and the space-devouring beast, if not for the 3 rays of sword chi from the plainly dressed woman, what could he have done? What could he have done? Yi Xian faced his heart. The answer was that he could not do anything and could only wait for death. My fate is in my own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Now that he thought about it, this sentence was so ironic. How many people in this world could truly control their own fate? Could he do it now? The answer was no. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Control of one's own fate? To him it was still a joke. Of course, he understood very well that even though he couldn't control his own destiny now, he had to work hard to fight for it and not resign himself to fate. No matter how unfair one's fate was, one must never resign to it. He could not resign himself to fate. When he thought up to here, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. In the next moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from his body, and the surrounding space instantly rippled like water. The aura around Yi Xian grew stronger and stronger. About an hour later, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! The space within a radius of several thousand zhong suddenly trembled violently. Yi Xian looked at his right hand. He slowly clenched it, and a powerful force gathered in his hand. Life destruction. He didn't expect that he would reach the fate-breaking state in this place. Life destruction. Yi Xian looked up into the depths of space. What was Fate Breaker? Only now did he understand that the so-called Fate Breaker wasn't about breaking through fate, but about seeing through fate. Perhaps one's birth was not good, but that birth did not mean one's entire life. If one worked hard, one could still change one's fate. When he thought of this, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Interesting realms. He didn't know who had created these realms, but he had to admit that they were all very interesting. Now, he was a little curious about the legendary Dao Destruction realm. Dao Destruction? How was it destroyed? Now, this chapter is not over. Please continue. He became even more curious. A moment later, Yi Xian disappeared. About 2 hours later, Yi Xian arrived in a starry sky. The Nether Palace. Yi Xian arrived before the Nether Palace and looked at the statues inside. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "Is anyone there?" No one responded. Yi Xian asked again, "Is anyone there?" Still no response. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before activating his bloodline. His bloodline started to boil, but there was still no response. Yi Xian hurriedly suppressed the blood in his body. He didn't dare to release his bloodline because he couldn't control it. Yi Xian glanced at the statues, bowed slightly, and left. In front of the palace, Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before saying softly, "I can only rely on myself." With that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the vast horizon. As soon as Yi Xian left, a statue in the palace suddenly shattered. Hee hee. A voice rang out from within the palace. After leaving the Nether Palace, Yi Xian didn't return to the dual realm sky. Instead, he returned to the prison pagoda. Yi Xian arrived at the top of the pagoda. Sword Venerate was still sitting below the sword. Yi Xian glanced at Sword Venerate. Sword Venerate had been sitting before the sword for a very long time. He had already entered a meditative state. Sword Venerate must have comprehended something. As for how much he could comprehend, it would depend on his luck. Yi Xian looked at the three swords. The pinnacle of swordsmanship? If there was a pinnacle of swordsmanship, then these three swords represented the pinnacle of swordsmanship. How far was his swordsmanship from that of the masters of these three swords? There was no answer. Yi Xian shook his head and left. He went to Xiao Ling-er's alchemy room. Xiao Ling-er was still fiddling with elixirs. Because of Xiao Ling-er, many people in the northern region had reached the Earth celestial stage. It could be said that Xiao Ling-er had improved the overall strength of the northern region. Seeing Yi Xian, Xiao Ling-er ran up to him. Her little face was still stained with a lot of black dust. Yi Xian gently wiped the dust off Xiao Ling-er's face and said with a smile, "Don't tire yourself too much, okay?" Xiao Ling-er blinked. "Elixirs. Help you." Yi Xian felt warm in his heart. "I know, but in my heart, you are more important than elixirs, okay?" Xiao Ling-er hesitated and said softly, "I." As she spoke, she lowered her head. Yi Xian said with a smile, "What's wrong?" Xiao Ling-er looked up at Yi Xian. "I can help you." Yi Xian smiled. "I know. You have helped me a lot." Xiao Ling-er wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Yi Xian touched Xiao Ling-er's little head gently. "What do you want to say?" Xiao Ling-er shook her head. "Nothing." Yi Xian nodded. "Anyway, if there is anything, you must tell me, okay?" Xiao Ling-er nodded. "Okay." Yi Xian smiled and then left the alchemy room. After Yi Xian left, Xiao Ling-er took out the alchemy scripture and flipped to the last page. There were two big words on it. Godly Shumi Pill. After a while, Xiao Ling-er turned and walked towards the alchemy furnace. She clenched her fists and her eyes were full of determination. "I must refine it. If I don't succeed, I will die." After Yi Xian left the alchemy room, he came to the entrance of the 9th floor. The door of the 9th floor was different from the other floors. There was a blood-red talisman on the door. Yi Xian glanced at the talisman, then turned and left. He said nothing. "This chapter is not finished. Please continue." Because he knew that his strength was not equal to the other party, there was no point in saying anything. He had to take responsibility for this matter himself. After leaving the World Prison Pagoda, Yi Xian arrived at the Dual Realm Sky. As soon as he arrived, the space in front of him suddenly split open, followed by a thick book flying out. Yi Xian was stunned. The executing heaven sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He was about to attack, but at this time, the thick black book suddenly circled around him, then slowly floated in front of him. Yi Xian was about to speak, but the thick book directly turned into a black light and disappeared between his eyebrows. Yi Xian was stunned. What the hell is this? At this time, Lian Qian suddenly appeared in front of him, staring fixedly at Yi Xian. "This is impossible." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Miss Lian Qian, what do you mean?" Lian Qian said, "See if you can control that ancient book just now." Yi Xian hesitated, then nodded. He sank his consciousness into his body, and soon, a black ancient book suddenly appeared in front of him. Seeing this thick ancient book, Lian Qian's expression became even more solemn. Yi Xian was puzzled. "Miss Lian Qian, this is?" Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. "Book realm." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Book realm." Lian Qian nodded. Using books as a boundary. Back then, Master used a book to develop a world. This book is a world of its own. There are many forbidden ancient books, rune incantations, and some extremely powerful word spirits. Especially these word spirits, they are condensed from all kinds of forbidden techniques and are extremely powerful. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Among all the treasures of the Myriad Dimensions Academy, this book can be ranked in the top 3. I don't know why it appeared here, and why it directly recognized you as its master. Yi Xian was also a little confused. Why would this thing suddenly appear here? Impossible? Lian Qian looked at the book realm in front of her. This guy is arrogant. It can be said that it only obeys master. Why would it come here, and even recognize you as its master? Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Lian Qian suddenly grabbed the book realm. A moment later she was stunned. It's her. Her. Yi Xian was puzzled. Miss Lian Qian? Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. It's nothing. Since this thing has already recognized you as its master, then make good use of it. This thing is extremely powerful, not any weaker than your executing heaven sword. If used well, it will have a miraculous effect, especially in suppressing one's realm. This thing can suppress one's realm, so when you fight in the future, you can keep your opponent in this book realm and suppress their realm. Suppress one's realm. Yi Xian's expression changed. Miss Lian Qian, can this really be done? Lian Qian nodded. It can. Not only that, if you can control the world spirits in this book realm, with their power, you can completely destroy experts of the same level as Chen Tian's clone. Yi Xian asked, what about the main body? Lian Qian rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. If the main body was so easy to kill, then Chen Tian wouldn't have become the Myriad Dimensions Academy's lord. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. Lian Qian said solemnly. However, this thing is extremely powerful. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the ability to subdue those word spirits. Yi Xian asked, how do I subdue them? Lian Qian said, come with me. After saying that, she directly brought Yi Xian into the book realm. As soon as they entered the book realm, Yi Xian looked around curiously. There were too many books around. Lian Qian said, feel those word spirits. Remember, be polite. These word spirits have their own intelligence, so they are very difficult to subdue. You have to be humble, don't lose face, otherwise. At this moment, a crimson extinguished character suddenly floated in front of Yi Xian. It directly flew to Yi Xian's hand, then lightly rubbed against Yi Xian's hand, extremely docile. Lian Qian was silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 855. Yi Xian was a little confused. He could feel that the word was trying to please him. Here came the question. Why did the book realm appear here? Not only did it appear here, but it also recognized him as its master. He did not think that he was the master of destiny, who would allow such a divine object to submit to him. What was going on? Yi Xian looked at Lian Qian. Miss Lian Qian, you should know what happened, right? Lian Qian nodded. It's her. Her. Yi Xian was slightly startled. You mean the plain-dressed woman? Lian Qian nodded. She looked up at the starry sky. If I'm not wrong, Chen Tian went to look for her. That big idiot. Yi Xian felt relieved. Clearly, as Lian Qian said, the Myriad Dimensional Academy went to look for the plain-dressed woman. And the result was obvious. The plain-dressed woman had definitely won. Not only did she win, but she also snatched a treasure for him. Yi Xian's heart warmed. He looked at the end of the starry sky. She had not forgotten about him. Lian Qian suddenly said, it has recognized you as its master. Moreover, the word spirits have also recognized you as their master. You can use them to fight at any time. Yi Xian looked at the annihilate word in his hand. How powerful is it? Lian Qian said, you'll know once you try it. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. All right. After saying that, he opened his palm. The annihilate word directly merged into his palm. The next moment, he fiercely pushed his palm forward. Boom! In an instant, the space tens of thousands of zhang in front of him turned into nothingness. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of that. What kind of power was this? Yi Xian was shocked. Even his immeasurable sword wasn't this terrifying. This word actually had such great power. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, you can try merging this word into your sword. Merging it into the sword. Hearing Lian Qian's words, Yi Xian suddenly became a little excited. The power of this word was so strong. If it was integrated into his sword, wouldn't it be even stronger? Thinking of this, Yi Xian hurriedly activated the destroy word. This word was very cooperative and directly integrated into the executing heaven sword in his hand. Boom! The executing heaven sword trembled violently, and a powerful aura of destruction swept out from the tip of the sword. At the same time, Yi Xian's hand cracked. Yi Xian was shocked, and he quickly let go of the executing heaven sword. The executing heaven sword trembled violently, and a powerful force surged out from it. The space around Yi Xian and Lian Qian began to crack bit by bit. Yi Xian looked at his hand with a solemn expression. His own physical body could be said to be extremely terrifying, but he hadn't expected that his hand wouldn't be able to withstand the power of this word. Moreover, he hadn't even activated the executing heaven sword. If he did, then his entire arm would probably explode. Fortunately, it was a celestial sword. Any other sword wouldn't be able to withstand the power of this word. At this moment, Lian Qian spoke solemnly. This sword of yours is really amazing. Any other sword would probably have been reduced to ashes. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed. Lian Qian said. Put it away. This word and the book realm can be considered your trump card. Save it for the critical moment. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He put away the executing heaven sword and the book realm. Now he had another trump card. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. What do you plan to do now? Yi Xian looked up at the starry sky in the distance. I'll go explore it. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light and vanished into the starry sky. Ching Ching. Yi Clan. Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the great elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting with his life on the line for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he discards his position or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly smiled and said, He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder said coldly, Then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to show off had come. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang will inherit the position of crown prince. What are you shouting for? As he said this, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She just covered her cheek tightly. Yi Long sized up the guard and asked with a smile, What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Your subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. You are very good. After I become the crown prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. Your subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man. As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me! Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling in such a state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Ching Ching! Yi Clan. Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. Why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we do not know if he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Discard him or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. She should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly. Then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is risking his life for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered. Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you shouting about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Long sized up the guard and asked with a smile, What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy. Understood? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man." As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 856. In the dark, Yi Xian looked in front of him. There stood a man. The man wore a feathered robe that seemed to be weaved from feathers. He wore a white square scarf on his head and held a feather fan in his hand. He had a meaningful smile on his face as if everything was under his control. At this moment, a woman slowly walked to the man's back. She wore a dark green dress, and her hair reached her waist. Her jade-like arm was wrapped with a golden ribbon, and the end of the ribbon fell to the ground, fluttering gently in the wind. The woman lowered her head and looked down. From her position she could see the dual realm sky. They failed. The strategist smiled. They underestimated the enemy. This four-dimensional universe isn't as weak as we thought. Or rather, the people at the top aren't weak at all. The woman tilted her head and looked at the strategist. Many people are looking at our Myriad Dimensions Academy as a joke. The strategist said softly, "The one who laughs last is the king, isn't that right?" The woman said in a low voice, "Why did the academy head issue a wanted order and let everyone know about it?" The strategist looked down and said softly, "Because the people below might really be very strong." The woman looked at the strategist. "The academy head wants to kill with a borrowed knife?" The strategist smiled and said, "It would be best if you could kill someone else with a knife. However, I'm guessing that the mansion master doesn't want to kill someone with a knife. Instead, he wants to use someone else to exhaust Yi Xian and the people behind him." The woman frowned. "Are the people below really that strong?" The strategist looked at the woman and smiled. "Lin Lang, do you remember the motto that the prophet left behind in Myriad Dimensions Academy?" Lin Lang said, "Don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate anyone." The strategist nodded. Many people die because they underestimate their enemies. A lion needs to use its full strength to catch a rabbit. Lin Lang looked at the strategist. "I heard that you sent people to find his sister?" The strategist smiled. "Do you think I'm despicable?" Lin Lang was silent. The strategist smiled. "We can't just use brute force and violence to deal with our enemies. We need to find his weakness. Once we find it, we can use our strongest power to attack their weakest point." "What's Yi Xian's weakness?" "It was his sister. Find Yi Ling's weak point and defeat him in one strike." At this point he looked down and said, "There is no such thing as being despicable when dealing with an enemy. There is only winning and losing." Lin Lang said, "I want to see the so-called geniuses of the four-dimensional universe." After saying that, she directly flew down. The strategist chuckled and left. In the dark, Yi Xian did not make a move. Look for Yi Ling? If it was in the past, he would have killed this strategist at all costs. But now he wouldn't, because only he knew how terrifying Yi Ling was. That was an existence that could suppress his bloodline at any time. Of course, no matter how strong she was still his little sister. This was something that no one could change. Yi Xian turned around and left. Very soon, he arrived in front of a huge altar. 4 black-robed experts stood on top of the altar. In front of the 4 of them was a blood-red ball. At this moment, the ball was constantly emitting a red aura that slowly spread towards the seal Lien Qian had placed on it. Corrosion. The red aura was corroding Lien Qian's seal. Yi Xian glanced at the 4 of them. In the next moment, he disappeared. The instant Yi Xian disappeared, the expressions of the 4 people on the altar changed. They immediately stopped. At this time, a sword light flashed above the altar. Chi 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 chi. 4 bloody heads flew into the air. Yi Xian extended his left hand to the left and then clenched it. With this clench, he grasped the executing heaven's sword, which was covered in blood. Yi Xian looked at the blood ball in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, he disappeared along with the blood ball. Just as Yi Xian disappeared, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene. On the left side of the old man's chest, there was a small Wei character, an expert from the Myriad Dimensions Academy. The old man glanced at the 4 corpses on the ground. He looked at the right side of the altar. There was a crystal ball there. With a light hook of his hand, the crystal ball turned into a water screen in front of him. An image appeared on the water screen. In the image, a swordsman flashed past and 4 heads fell to the ground. This swordsman was Yi Xian. The old man pondered for a moment and said, "Inform the others that he's here." "Yes." A voice sounded behind him. The old man glanced around. "You're quite daring." After saying that, he disappeared. In a dark corner, Yi Xian sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. A blood-red ball floated in front of him. At this moment, Lien Qian's voice sounded in his mind. "This thing is called the boundary-breaking pearl. It contains a lot of blood qi and evil qi. The evil qi is very strong. You can absorb it to strengthen your bloodline." "No, you can't absorb it." She suddenly remembered that Yi Xian's bloodline was already terrifying enough. If he absorbed this thing, would Yi Xian be able to suppress it? He definitely wouldn't be able to suppress it. Yi Xian didn't dare to absorb it. Although this thing was good, he couldn't control his bloodline. Lien Qian said, "Use it at a critical moment." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I don't want to be at a critical moment." As he said that, he put away the boundary-breaking pearl. Lien Qian said softly, "You have to think of a way. Otherwise, the seal will break in 2 months. At that time, the 4-dimensional universe will be in danger. You have to understand that humans are greedy." What is the 4-dimensional universe in the eyes of the 5-dimensional experts? It's a piece of fat meat. The big fish eats the small fish. This is the rule of every world. Right now, the 4-dimensional universe is the small fish. Yi Xian was silent. Lien Qian continued, "Many people won't come to snatch your pagoda because they know their limits. They know that this pagoda is something that only the big shots can fight for. Therefore, their target will be the 4-dimensional universe. Simply put, it's to plunder, enslave." Yi Xian said softly, "I originally thought that the 5-dimensional universe would be different from the 4-dimensional universe." Lien Qian said, "It's the same in every world. Some powerful civilizations are powerful not only because they have great strength, but also because they are crueler than other civilizations and races. Everywhere, it's survival of the fittest. The weak will be eliminated." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." As he said that, he looked around. "Is this the 5-dimensional universe?" Lien Qian said, "No, this can be said to be the boundary between the 4-dimensional universe and the 5-dimensional universe. You have to cross this boundary to reach the 5-dimensional universe." "Why? Do you want to go to the 5-dimensional universe?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't want to go. I just want to understand it." Lien Qian said, "You want to understand Yi Ling?" Yi Xian nodded. Lien Qian said in a low voice, "She's in the Azura Hell. That place is not something you can go to now." Yi Xian said, "Even with my current strength I can't?" Lien Qian said, "You're not weak, but you're not strong enough to walk around the 5-dimensional universe. Don't look down on this world even a little bit. There are many people who can kill you." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." Lien Qian asked, What are your plans now? Yi Xian said softly. To kill. After saying that, he turned his head and looked into the distance. Someone's coming. In the distance, 2 men and a woman flew over. Soon, the 3 of them stopped not far in front of Yi Xian. The man in the lead was holding a long sword. He looked down and said softly, "It said that Yi Xian is a genius in swordsmanship. His attainments in swordsmanship are extremely profound. I don't know if it's true or not." Next to the long-sword man, another man in a luxurious robe smiled. How strong can a swordsman from a low-level dimensional world be? The long-sword man shook his head. Ada, don't underestimate anyone. The man called Ada smiled and said, Eternal Wind, I'm not looking down on them. I know that the people of the four-dimensional universe are still pursuing the so-called Tao, and they don't even know what Tao is. As he said that, he looked down at the four-dimensional universe. Their current civilization is too far behind us. Not to mention anything else, just the 3 of us are enough to sweep the entire four-dimensional universe. Eternal Wind chuckled. Ada, you're still the same. Think about it, if the people down there are so easy to bully, would the Myriad Dimensional Academy's Lord still issue this so-called arrest warrant? The person who kills Yi Xian can not only share the World Prison Pagoda with the Myriad Dimensional Academy, but also enter the Myriad Dimensional Academy's Holy Land to cultivate. Apart from that, they can also obtain a scroll of martial arts created by the Prophet. If the people down there are so easy to bully, they wouldn't have offered such an attractive condition. As he said that, he turned his head. This Myriad Dimensional Academy is trying to kill us with a borrowed knife. But that's fine too. Now that the restriction has been lifted, the four-dimensional universe is also a piece of fat meat for us. The woman beside him suddenly said, Fat meat. The corner of Eternal Wind's mouth rose. Think about it. With the strength of the 3 of us, can we find a place in the four-dimensional universe to establish a powerful force? The woman asked. And then? Eternal Wind smiled. What do you think? The woman glanced at Eternal Wind. Plunder. Eternal Wind nodded. Actually, there have been many people who wanted to plunder the four-dimensional universe since a long time ago. Unfortunately, the restriction set by the Prophet is too strong. No one has any way to go down. But now, the Myriad Dimensional Academy has removed the restriction. Moreover, they're allowing others to go down. This is an opportunity for us, and we have to grasp it. As for how much we can reap, that will depend on our own luck. Ada laughed. Eternal Wind, your idea is not bad. I heard that there is a black-yellow great world down there. That is Yi Xian's lair. We will choose that place. Haha. Eternal Wind smiled. Let's go. Let's get rich. Get rich, get rich. Ada laughed loudly. The 3 of them were about to go down when Eternal Wind suddenly turned his head. Not far away, a man was walking over slowly. The man was wearing a mask and his face couldn't be seen. The man walked in front of the 3 of them and smiled. The 3 of you want to go to the four-dimensional universe? Eternal Wind glanced at the man. You are? The man smiled. I'm Xian Yi from the Worldwide Academy. Just now, I heard that brother wants to go to the four-dimensional universe to get rich. Coincidentally, I also have the same idea. How about we go together? Chapter 857. The person in front of them was naturally Yi Xian. Worldwide Academy? Chong Feng sized up the man in front of him. Are you from Wu Yuan or Literature Academy? Yi Xian smiled. Wu Yuan. Wu Yuan. Chong Feng glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled. It should be your first time going to the four-dimensional universe, right? Chong Feng nodded. Yes. Yi Xian smiled. I've been there once before, so I'm quite familiar with the place. If the 3 of you are willing, we can go together. Chong Feng looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. At this moment, the woman beside her suddenly sent a voice transmission. There's something strange about this person. Ada also said, Be careful. Chong Feng was silent for a moment, and then he looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Of course. Then please lead the way, Brother Xian. Yi Xian laughed. The 3 of you come with me. After saying that, he walked towards the distance. Ada glanced at Yi Xian and sent a voice transmission to Chong Feng. I'm afraid this person doesn't come with good intentions. Chong Feng smiled. We can use him. Ada hesitated and nodded. That's true. Soon, the four of them arrived at the four-dimensional universe. In the starry sky, Chang Feng looked at Yi Xian. Brother Xian, do you know that Yi Xian? Yi Xian nodded and smiled. I know about Dao Yi. Chang Feng asked, how strong is this person? Yi Xian hesitated and smiled. He's not bad in the four-dimensional universe, but in the eyes of the three of you, he can't even withstand a single blow. Chang Feng smiled. Is that so? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Brother, you should know that the martial arts civilization of the four-dimensional universe is much weaker than our five-dimensional universe. How strong would a swordsman from such a world be? In my opinion, if the three of you wanted to kill him, it would only take a few seconds. Chang Feng looked at Yi Xian. Is Yi Xian really as weak as you say? Yi Xian laughed and said, Otherwise, do you all think that he is very strong? Eternal Wind shook his head. If he was really that weak, would your myriad-dimensional academy still issue this wanted order? Yi Xian smiled. Because there seems to be some experts from the four-dimensional universe behind him. Eternal Wind stared at Yi Xian. Those experts are so strong that your myriad dimension academy can't do anything about them. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't know about that. I'm just a small student in Wu Yuan. That's all. Chang Feng stared at Yi Xian without saying anything. Meanwhile, Ada suddenly said, Aren't we going to the Sky-Earth world? At that time, wouldn't we know Yi Xian's true strength? Yi Xian nodded. Right. When we arrive at the Sky-Earth world, we'll be able to fight Yi Xian. Eternal Wind glanced at Yi Xian and said, Brother Xian, why have you come here? Yi Xian laughed and said, I'm here to fish for some benefits. When he spoke up to here, he paused for a moment and said, Looks like you're very suspicious of me. Since it's like that, then I won't be joining the three of you. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Eternal Wind looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Right at this moment, Ada suddenly said, Brother Xian, wait. Yi Xian stopped and turned around to look at Ada. Ada laughed and said, Brother Xian, our goal is to get rich. Since we have the same goal, then we can join forces. In any case, our target is Yi Xian. Isn't that right? Eternal Wind laughed and said, Brother Xian, I don't have any other intentions. You know that we have to be cautious when we're outside. Yi Xian nodded lightly. I completely understand. Do the three of you want to kill Yi Xian? Qing, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From this moment onward, Yi Xian's position as crown prince is removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and didn't dare to look directly at the Great Elder. However, she didn't leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times, as a warning to others. The Great Elder coldly replied. Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince's position, and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she didn't cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 personal guards. From now on, you'll be my personal guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince, and I'm willing to die 1,000 deaths." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back." "Understood?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was dressed in a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Ching ching! Yi Clan. Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the elders of the Yi clan. "Why?" Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, "Great elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. This is truly unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and quickly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu saw something, and suddenly stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and his robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder squinted his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Puh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts!" Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu, and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 858. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. "What's your name?" Yi Xian smiled. "Mo Qiuyan." This was the name of the Wu Yuan student he had killed. The reason he had changed his name was because he wanted to be more cautious. Xuanye. Yi Xian. If he met someone with a meticulous mind, he could easily expose himself. Moreover, if he met someone from the Myriad Dimension Academy and there was no Xuanye, it would be a bit embarrassing. Just like what Chang Feng had said before, it was always good to be careful when going out. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. "Did that dead Chang Feng call you Brother Xian?" Yi Xian smiled. "Alias." Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and nodded. "Follow me." With that, he turned and left. Yi Xian looked at Li Yunqi. He could feel that this person was a bit on guard against him. It had to be said that these people were very cautious. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and followed. At this moment, Anlancio and the others had already been called back to the black-yellow great world. Because more and more experts from the fifth dimension had come, they had to go back to guard the black-yellow great world. As for the experts from the dual realm sky, they had also been called back to the black-yellow great world. The current dual realm sky was not a safe place. Grand Elder Chen and the others also knew this, so they chose to go to the black-yellow great world. Unity. Now everyone knew that the people of the fourth dimension had to be united. Otherwise, facing the people of the fifth dimension, everyone could only wait for death. On the way, Li Yunqi suddenly asked, "Where did Brother Mo come from?" Yi Xian smiled. "If Brother Li doesn't believe me, I will leave." Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian also did not say anything. A moment later, Li Yunqi brought Yi Xian to a starry sky. Just as they entered, several divine senses swept over. These divine senses directly fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked into the distance and clenched his fists. Boom! A powerful force surged out of his body, and those divine senses were directly shattered. A voice sounded from afar. Then, a man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Yi Xian. The man wore a black robe with a golden dragon embroidered on it. The man looked at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" His tone was overbearing. Yi Xian said, "Mo Chuyen." The man looked at Li Yunqi, and Li Yunqi said, "I just got to know him. He's also here to reap some benefits." The man was expressionless. "Is it useful?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Won't you know once you try?" The man looked at Yi Xian. In the next moment, a powerful dragon might swept towards Yi Xian. Dragon might? What he was least afraid of in this life was the dragon's might. After all, there was once an ancient golden dragon that had fused with his soul. Yi Xian did not move at all, allowing the dragon's might to strike him. Boom! The space around Yi Xian trembled violently and shattered, but Yi Xian was completely fine. Seeing this scene, the man narrowed his eyes. A hint of surprise flashed in Li Yunqi's eyes. The man looked at Yi Xian. "You've absorbed my dragon's might." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Can't I?" The man was about to attack again when Li Yunqi suddenly said, "Jun Wuyen, don't forget that we're here. The real purpose of this trip." The man named Jun Wuyen hesitated for a moment, then gave up on attacking. He glanced at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Li Yunqi said, "Where are they?" Jun Wuyen opened his palm, and a golden jade seal appeared in his hand. He chanted a few words, and soon, the space not far away from the three of them suddenly cracked. Jun Wuyen kept the jade seal. "Let's go." After saying that, he walked into the cracked space. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. "Let's go." After saying that, he also followed. Yi Xian glanced around and then followed in. After entering, the scene changed, and the three of them came to an unknown hall. In front of the hall, Yi Xian found that there were two women and a man. The man was about 20 years old with long hair, and he carried a zither on his back. In his hand, he was holding an emerald green flute. Not far from the man sat a woman. The woman was lying on a stone block with her legs crossed, and there was a black iron chain wrapped around her arm. Opposite her, a woman in a long dress leaned against a long pillar with her arms crossed. She seemed to be resting. Seeing that Yi Xian and the other two had come, the man with the zither looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Li Yunqi looked at everyone. "Everyone, our goal this time is to kill Yi Xian. You may not know much about Yi Xian. This person is young, but his swordsmanship has reached the breaking realm of this world. In addition, his realm has also reached the life-breaking realm of this world. He also has two extremely powerful swords in his hands. One is called the Executing Heaven Sword. This sword is extremely sharp and is known as the sharpest sword in the four-dimensional universe. If you meet this person, you must not fight this sword head-on." At this time, the woman sitting on the stone block not far away suddenly said, "Is he that strong?" Li Yunqi nodded. "I have already checked. Even in the five-dimensional universe, this sword is a divine weapon. You'd better not underestimate the power of this sword. Otherwise you may pay with your lives." At this time, the man with the zither suddenly asked, "What about the soul-suppressing sword?" Li Yunqi said, "This thing is very effective against the soul. When you fight with him, you must not let your body be destroyed. Otherwise, this sword can easily destroy your soul. At this point, he paused and then said, however, the real strength of this Yi Xian is not these two swords, but his bloodline. This person's bloodline is extremely strange. Once he activates it, he will be like a madman and his battle strength will soar to an unreasonable level. Bloodline. At this time, the woman leaning against the pillar suddenly opened her eyes. What bloodline? Li Yunqi smiled. Qian Mo, I almost forgot that you also have a special bloodline. The woman called Qian Mo looked at Li Yunqi and asked, what bloodline does he have? Li Yunqi shook his head. I don't know. I only know that his bloodline is extremely terrifying. Once it is activated, his battle strength will soar. Therefore, if we attack, it's best to kill him in one blow and not give him any chance to activate his bloodline. At this point, he paused and then said, according to my investigation, there are a few stronger people in the black-yellow great world. These people are Yi Xian's friends, and their battle strength is not low. In addition, the powerhouses of the dual realm sky have also come to the black-yellow great world. Therefore, we can't attack the black-yellow great world by force. We can only use a trick to lure Yi Xian out. Jun Wuyan suddenly asked, how do we lure him out? Li Yunqi smiled. It's very simple. Use his younger sister. Younger sister? Not far away, the woman sitting on the stone pillar suddenly sat up and looked at Li Yunqi. He has a younger sister? Li Yunqi nodded. This person attaches great importance to his younger sister. However, not long ago, his younger sister suddenly disappeared, and we still don't know where she is. We can make use of this to lure him here, and then kill him in one strike. Jun Wuyan said in a low voice. Don't forget that he still has the prison pagoda. The prison pagoda. Li Yunqi nodded. Yes. Therefore, if we make a move, we must not hold back. We must not hold back at all. After saying that, he looked at the crowd. Everyone, this person was able to make the worldwide academy return empty-handed several times. He is not an ordinary person. Don't underestimate him just because he is from the four-dimensional universe. Otherwise, we will pay a painful price. Jun Wuyan suddenly said, Brother Li, I know that Yi Xian is not ordinary, but to be honest, we don't need to take him too seriously. The martial arts civilization of the four-dimensional universe is like this. No matter how strong he is, how strong can he be? The woman sitting on the stone pillar also said, it's right to be cautious. However, as Wu Yan said, we don't need to take this person too seriously. The man carrying the guqin suddenly said softly, no matter what, don't underestimate this person. As Brother Li said, it's fine if we don't make a move. Once we make a move, it's best to kill him in one blow. Moreover, we must be fast. Soon, more and more people will come down. At that time, others may beat us to it. Li Yunqi nodded. Yes, I have received news that more and more people are coming to the four-dimensional universe, especially some big sects and families. They are preparing to send their disciples and people down to train. On the side, Jun Wuyan said with a smile, it seems that the five-dimensional universe wants to use the four-dimensional universe as a training ground. However, isn't the four-dimensional universe an excellent training ground for them? The woman sitting on the stone pillar said with a smile, yes, it's the same for us. Jun Wuyan said with a smile, yes, this Yi Xian is our first prey. As he said that, he looked at Li Yunqi. Brother Li, who do you think is more suitable to lure him? Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian, who had been silent, and said with a smile, how about we let Brother Mo do this? Yi Xian was silent. Li Yunqi said with a smile, Brother Mo only needs to lure him here and leave the rest to us. After this is done, the soul-suppressing sword on Yi Xian will be given to Brother Mo. How about it? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I want the executing heaven sword. Li Yunqi laughed. Sure. Anyway, we are not swordsmen. After this is done, we will give you the sword. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. What should I do? Li Yunqi smiled slightly. You go and report that you have Yi Ling's whereabouts. Yi Xian will definitely follow you. As long as he comes here, leave the rest to us. Yi Xian nodded. Okay. As he said that, he turned around and left. At this moment Jun Wuyan, who was not far away, suddenly said, Wait! Yi Xian stopped and looked at Jun Wuyen. Jun Wuyen said in a deep voice, "You won't betray us, right?" Yi Xian spread out his hands. "Your Excellency, do you think I will benefit from betraying you? Moreover, I am a person from the fifth dimension. How can I team up with a fourth dimension ant?" Jun Wuyen glanced at Yi Xian and nodded slightly. "Happy working with you." Yi Xian nodded. "Happy working with you all." Li Yunqi nodded slightly. "Be careful. Brother Mo Yi Xian is very cunning. You must be careful." Yi Xian nodded. "I will be very careful." Chapter 859. When he saw Yi Xian leave, Jun Wuyen suddenly said, "Brother Li, can he be trusted?" Li Yunqi smiled and said, "He has no reason to side with Yi Xian. After all, he's from the fifth dimension. If he sides with Yi Xian, then wouldn't he become the public enemy of the fifth dimension? Moreover, he's very weak. He knows very well that even if he sides with Yi Xian might not want him. So, he can only choose to trust us." The woman on the nearby stone block suddenly said, "Are we really going to give him that sword?" Li Yunqi roared with laughter. "Miss Huban, what do you think?" The woman called Huban gave Li Yunqi a thumbs up. "You're really cunning." Li Yunqi shook his head. "He's greedy." Jun Wuyen nodded. "Don't work together with someone who's too much stronger than you." Everyone fell silent when they heard this. Any kind of cooperation was actually established on the basis that everyone's strength was equal. If one side was too strong and the other side was too weak, then such cooperation was bound to have a bad ending for the weaker side. Li Yunqi opened his palm, and a palm-sized stone plate appeared in his hand. He silently recited a chant, and in next to no time, strands of white light suddenly flew out from the stone plate. In the end, these strands of white light completely entered the space around them. "A formation," Li Yunqi said. "I've already sealed the space here. After Yi Xian enters, the space here will be reinforced. He won't be able to easily break through the space here and escape. At that time, please don't hold back and strive to kill him with a single strike." Jun Wuyen nodded as well. "Chen Mo, Huban, and Brother Gu Qing. The three of you are dragons and phoenixes amongst men, and your strengths are extremely formidable. However, when you face Yi Xian later, please don't hold back and strive to not make any mistakes." The man with the zither on his back, Gu Qing, nodded slightly. "Understood." Chen Mo, who was leaning against the pillar, nodded slightly as well. "All right." Huban smiled and said, "Don't worry. Yi Xian's head is too valuable. I don't want to lose it because I underestimated him." Li Yunqi nodded slightly. "That's good." As he spoke, he looked into the distance. "I hope nothing unexpected happens." After Yi Xian left that space, he did not return to the black-yellow great world. Instead, he went to the dual realm sky. There were not many people left in the dual realm sky. To be more precise, there were no experts with a thought universe. Most of the experts in the dual realm sky had gone to the northern region of the black-yellow great world. Those who had appeared in the dual realm sky were basically all experts from the fifth dimension. Yi Xian was guarding the seal. Not long after, two men suddenly flew down from the seal. Both men were dressed in black robes and held long spears in their hands. After the two of them came down, they looked around and were about to leave when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of them. When they saw Yi Xian, the two of them immediately became vigilant. Yi Xian looked at the spear-wielding man. "Are the two of you here to kill Yi Xian?" The spear-wielding man stared at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" Yi Xian said, "I am Mo Chuyen, also from the fifth dimension." Fifth dimension. The spear-wielding man sized up Yi Xian. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian smiled. "It's nothing." After saying this, he turned around and left. At this time, the spear-wielding man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, staring at Yi Xian. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian was silent. The spear-wielding man was about to speak, but Yi Xian sighed, "You're too late." The spear-wielding man narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian said, "That fifth dimension treasure has already fallen into someone else's hands." The spear-wielding man frowned. "Yi Xian has already been killed?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page." "Yi Xian has already been killed. You're too late." The spear-wielding man said in a deep voice. Who killed him? Yi Xian said, Li Yunqi, Jun Wuyan, and the others. Li Yunqi. The spear-wielding man frowned. Modu, Qing Nation. Yi Xian nodded. There are a total of 5 of them, and the 5 of them have already joined forces to kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian's treasure has already fallen into their hands. Hearing this, the spear-wielding man was silent. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Do you want to fight? The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian. What do you mean? Yi Xian said, Although they have already killed Yi Xian, they have yet to leave. Instead they are hiding somewhere. Do you want to fight? The spear-wielding man shook his head. If there were 5 of them, we wouldn't be able to defeat them. Yi Xian said, Divide them. The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian. Divide them. Yi Xian nodded. As far as I know, they are currently unevenly dividing the spoils and there are already conflicts. Therefore they haven't left. This is our chance. The spear-wielding man suddenly asked, Why do you know so much? Yi Xian smiled. Because I was in cahoots with them. However, after killing Yi Xian, they want to get rid of me. The spear-wielding man stared at Yi Xian and asked, Why? Yi Xian shrugged. Because I am the weakest. The spear-wielding man was silent. Yi Xian said, This is an opportunity because they may be leaving the 4th dimension soon. Once they leave the 4th dimension, it will be difficult to obtain the 5th dimension treasure. The spear-wielding man looked at the man beside him, and the man looked at Yi Xian. Our goal is not that treasure. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. With that, he turned and left. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the horizon. The spear-wielding man said in a deep voice, Brother, what do you think? The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Follow him, don't let him find you. With that, the two disappeared from the spot. In the distance, Yi Xian flew in the air. Soon, he arrived at the space where Li Yunqi and the others were. As soon as he appeared, Li Yunqi and the others who were hiding in the dark suddenly became alert. There was no one behind Yi Xian. Seeing this, Li Yunqi frowned and directly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He is not coming? Yi Xian looked a little flustered, and his tone was also a little shaky. He is coming. I will leave the rest to you. With that, he turned and ran. He was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the distance. Seeing Yi Xian escape, Li Yunqi frowned slightly. Coward. With that, he glanced around, but there was no trace of Yi Xian. Li Yunqi said coldly, Yi Xian, I know that you are very good at concealment. If you want to know the whereabouts of your sister, then come out. At this time, the space in front of Li Yunqi suddenly cracked, and then a man walked out. The person who came was Yi Xian, but at this moment, he was not wearing a mask, but his real body. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian with a trace of fear in his eyes. You want to know the whereabouts of your sister? Yi Xian nodded. Li Yunqi said, Hand over the divine item, and I will tell you where your sister is. With that, he slowly clenched his right hand. He was ready to attack. Because he knew that Yi Xian would definitely not hand over the divine item. However, in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly flicked his finger, and a Xiao Ta directly landed in front of him. Seeing this scene, Li Yunqi, who was ready to attack, was stunned. Jun Wuyan and the others in the dark were also stunned. He handed it over just like that? Are you kidding me? Yi, this chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Xian suddenly said, Where is she? Li Yunqi's mouth twitched. The development of this matter was a little different from what he had expected. Without thinking too much, Li Yunqi suddenly said angrily, Attack! However, there was no movement around. Seeing this, Li Yunqi's face darkened. At this moment he suddenly understood. Now that the tower was with him, what was everyone's goal? It was for the tower, not to kill Yi Xian. Since the tower was already with him, why would Jun Wuyan and the others in the dark attack Yi Xian? Li Yunqi knew that now, everyone was targeting him, not Yi Xian. He had to divert the conflict. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly said in horror, You have an ambush. After saying that, he turned around and ran at an extremely fast speed, disappearing at the end of the starry sky in the blink of an eye. Li Yunqi was stunned. He ran away just like that? What was going on? As soon as Yi Xian disappeared, Jun Wuyen and the others appeared in front of Li Yunqi. Mo Choyen, who had escaped earlier, also appeared. Jun Wuyen looked at Li Yunqi, and Li Yunqi said in a deep voice, "Everyone, this matter is quite strange." At this time, Mo Choyen suddenly said, "This is the fifth dimensional treasure. According to rumors, this thing can open the all-creation book house and obtain the prophet treasure." Hearing Mo Choyen's words, Li Yunqi suddenly looked at him and said, "What do you mean?" Mo Choyen said in a deep voice, "Brother Li, this treasure does not belong to you alone. It belongs to everyone. Don't tell me you want to keep it for yourself?" Li Yunqi said angrily, "You dare to sow discord." Mo Choyen seemed to be somewhat afraid and immediately retreated several zhang, not daring to say anything. Li Yunqi looked at the world prison pagoda in his hand. At this moment, he had to admit that he felt like he was dreaming. This pagoda was a little unreal. Divide? This thought flashed in Li Yunqi's mind, but it was just a flash. There was only one pagoda. How could he divide it? He could not divide it at all. Thinking of this, Li Yunqi looked at Jun Wuyen and the others and said with a smile, "Everyone, I, Li Yunqi, am not a selfish person. Since I have obtained the pagoda, I should share it with everyone. Therefore, I have decided." After saying this, he suddenly looked behind Jun Wuyen and the others. "Yi Xian." Hearing Li Yunqi's words, Jun Wuyen subconsciously turned around. However, there was nothing behind him. Seeing this, Jun Wuyen's expression changed greatly. He immediately turned around, but at this moment, Li Yunqi had already disappeared into the horizon. Although Jun Wuyen fell for it, Gu Qing, who was carrying a zither on his back, did not fall for it. The instant Li Yunqi escaped, he immediately chased after him. However, this Li Yunqi's speed slightly exceeded his expectations. In the blink of an eye, Li Yunqi disappeared from this space, and Jun Wuyen and the others frantically chased after him. When Li Yunqi left this space, he encountered two men holding long spears. Seeing Li Yunqi, the spear-wielding man said ferociously, "That pagoda is really in your hands." After saying this, he was about to attack, but he was stopped by the man beside him. Because of this, Li Yunqi directly disappeared into the horizon. At the end of the horizon, Li Yunqi directly crushed a black stone. In the next moment, the space above his head directly trembled. Behind him, Jun Wuyen suddenly said, "He is calling the experts of Demonic City. Everyone, let's call together." Soon, the starry sky in the field began to tremble. Everyone was calling. P.S. Recently, before updating, I will check it several times. I dare not guarantee that there are no typos, but I will try to make sure there are no typos. If there are any mistakes, please correct me. End of this chapter. Chapter 860. In the dark, Yi Xian quietly looked at the starry sky in the distance. There, one person was escaping and several people were chasing. In fact, with his strength, he could completely kill Li Yunqi. In fact, he could kill Li Yunqi, Jun Wuyen, and everyone else. If he fought them head-on, he was not sure that he could defeat Li Yunqi and the others. After all, these 5 people were not weak. It would be very difficult for him to fight 1 against 5. However, he had forgotten that he had the immeasurable sword. If he carried out an assassination, these people would not be able to stop him. However, this time, he did not directly kill them. This was because he knew that these people did not have simple backgrounds. If he killed the young ones, the old ones would come. It could be said that there was no end to them. Killing a few people was not meaningful at all. After all, he was not alone. He had many things to consider, such as the black-yellow great world, or the entire 4-dimensional universe. Now, he was leading the people of the 4-dimensional universe to fight against the people of the 5-dimensional universe. In this situation, he could not rely on killing alone. He had to use some intelligence. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian disappeared. At the end of the distant starry sky, Li Yunqi was frantically escaping. The current him was a little crazy. He had obtained the treasure of the 5th dimension. There was a voice in his heart telling him that he had to give up this thing because it would bring him a disaster. However, this inner voice was quickly drowned out by his desire and ambition. The treasure of the 5th dimension. The treasure of the prophet. This tower could not only change his fate, but it could also change the fate of Demonic City. He, Li Yunqi, could use this treasure to become the most powerful person in Demonic City in tens of thousands of years and lead Demonic City to the peak of the fifth dimension. It was worth fighting for. Li Yunqi raised his head and looked at the end of the sky. At most a quarter of an hour, the experts of Demonic City would arrive. He only needed to hold on for a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour. Li Yunqi took a deep breath and began to accelerate crazily. At this moment, his speed was raised to the limit. Behind him, Jun Wuyan and the others were also chasing crazily. They knew that this was their chance. Once Li Yunqi brought the treasure back to the fifth dimension, it would be difficult for them to get it again. Thinking of this, Jun Wuyan and the others also accelerated crazily. Soon, Li Yunqi was getting closer and closer to the seal. At this moment, he clenched his fists tightly, and his blood was boiling. This was because he had already received news from the experts of Shanghai. The experts of Shanghai had already come out to pick him up. Obviously, Shanghai also approved of his actions this time. Once they obtained this fifth-dimensional treasure, the fate of Demonic City would change. Of course, the reason why Shanghai dared to do this was because Shanghai itself was not weak. Very soon, Li Yunqi arrived at the seal of the Dual Realm Sky. He raised his speed to the maximum. It was right in front of him. Because the powerhouses of Modu City were already behind this seal. As long as he could pass through this seal, he would be able to meet up with the powerhouses of Modu City. Just as Li Yunqi was about to enter the sealed area, a long spear suddenly pierced through the air. Like a bolt of lightning, the spear arrived in front of Li Yunqi in an instant. Li Yunqi was shocked. If he made a move, he would have to stop. As long as he stopped, Jun Wuyan and the others behind him would immediately catch up. And now, he had no choice but to stop. Because the spear's speed was too fast. Just as Li Yunqi was about to make a move, a powerful force suddenly attacked from the side. This force was even faster and directly hit the long spear. Boom! The long spear was instantly sent flying. Li Yunqi was slightly taken aback. Someone was helping him? Without thinking too much, Li Yunqi directly entered the sealed area and then disappeared into the starry sky. Behind him, Jun Wuyan and the others did not give up and madly chased after him. Very soon, Jun Wuyan and the others all disappeared into the starry sky of the four-dimensional universe. Below, the two men with long spears turned their heads and glanced to the right. They were the ones who had made a move just now. They also wanted to stop Li Yunqi, but they had been secretly stopped by someone. Who was it? Neither of them knew. Because the person who had made a move did not appear. At this moment, the man with long spears in the lead suddenly said, "Brother, what should we do now?" The man next to him raised his head and looked at the seal. "Let's go." After saying that, the two of them directly disappeared. On the right, Yi Xian walked out. It was him who had made a move just now. Yi Xian took a look at the sealed land and then disappeared from where he was. After the seal, as soon as Li Yunqi rushed out, an old man in a black robe suddenly appeared in front of him. The old man in the black robe grabbed Li Yunqi and said in a trembling voice, "How is it?" Li Yunqi immediately took out the World Prison Pagoda, and then handed it to the old man in the black robe. "Elder." It was not that he had not thought of embezzling it, but he was very clear that with his strength, it was impossible for him to embezzle such a treasure. If he embezzled it, it would be a dead end. The old man in the black robe glanced at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand and said with some excitement, "It's the World Prison Pagoda." As he said that, he looked at Li Yunqi. "Well done." At this moment, Jun Wuyan and the others behind him had also caught up. Seeing the old man in the black robe, the faces of Jun Wuyan and the others immediately darkened. An expert from Shanghai. An expert of this level was not someone they could fight at all. The old man in the black robe glanced at Jun Wuyan and the others and said with a smile, "Everyone, this item is now in the custody of the old man. I don't need you to escort it." After saying that, he looked at Li Yunqi. "Let's go." Just at this moment, a few powerful auras suddenly assaulted them from afar. The old man's face instantly darkened when he saw this scene. In next to no time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the old man in the black robe. When he saw this person, Jun Wuyan hurriedly walked over to the middle-aged man and bowed respectfully. "Uncle Wang." The person who had come was Jun Wuxian of the Qing Kingdom, the Qing Kingdom's prince. Beside the middle-aged man was a woman in a white dress, a veil over her face, and a zither on her back. At the side, Gu Qing walked over to the woman and bowed respectfully. Martial Aunt. The Heavenly Sound Palace's Lin Miaoyin. Besides these two people, there were two other old men. They were the Qian clan's Grand Elder, Wan Yunzhong, and the He clan's Grand Elder, He Wanlian. The old man in the black robe suddenly laughed. What? Are you going to rob me? Rob me? At the side, Jun Wuyan suddenly laughed coldly. Shanghai really doesn't even care about face. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. Kid, didn't the adults in your clan teach you to respect your elders? Jun Wuxian suddenly said. What's going on? Jun Wuyan said in a deep voice. Uncle Wang, it's like this. The five of us agreed to deal with Yi Xian together. We also agreed that if we obtained the fifth-dimensional treasure, we would all share it. However, after we obtained the fifth-dimensional treasure, Li Yunqi wanted to keep it for himself. Keep it for himself. Hearing this, Jun Wuxian and the others looked at the old man in the black robe with unfriendly expressions. Li Yunqi suddenly said, Jun Wuyan, let me ask you, did you help to obtain this treasure? Jun Wuyan asked in reply, then did you help? Hearing this, Li Yunqi was also stunned. He really didn't help. He also didn't expect that Yi Xian would hand it over just like that. Jun Wuyan suddenly laughed coldly. If it wasn't for us, would Yi Xian be afraid of you? Would he hand over that divine object so easily to you? Li Yunqi, this thing belongs to everyone, not just you. You want to keep it for yourself? In your dreams. Li Yunqi was about to speak when the old man in the black robe beside him suddenly laughed. Everyone, let's not talk about reason. All the treasures in the world belong to those with power, right? Jun Wuxian chuckled. Why, Li Guangxing, do you think you're stronger than all of us? Li Guangxing laughed. I dare not. Who doesn't know that the king of the Qing kingdom has 2 purple runes? But, at this point, he suddenly opened his palm. In his hand, there was a purple rune. In the next moment, the space around him and Li Yunqi began to directly become illusory. Space rune. Jun Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly. Want to leave? You're thinking too much. As soon as he finished speaking, he directly rushed out. Boom. A powerful force blasted the space where Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing were, and the entire space trembled. However, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi who were in the space became more and more illusory. Obviously, they were about to disappear completely. Suddenly, Lin Miaoyin from the Heavenly Sound Palace suddenly tossed out a purple rune. The rune appeared directly above Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi. Li Guangxing's expression changed drastically when he saw the purple rune. Space Cage Rune. As soon as he finished speaking, the space around him began to shrink layer by layer. But right at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly appeared in this space. In the blink of an eye, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi disappeared. Everyone was stunned. Lin Miaoyin suddenly looked to the right with a cold gaze. Who's there? As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand, and the space that was 300 m away instantly exploded. However, there was no one there. Lin Miaoyin frowned slightly when she saw this. Jun Wuxian also glanced coldly at the space. He had sensed that someone had made a move just now, but the person's aura had only flashed for a moment, and he couldn't track it. Everyone's expressions were slightly unsightly. The pagoda of prison had fallen into the hands of the capital. Meanwhile, the He clan's Grand Elder spoke abruptly. Everyone, that treasure should have been shared by all of us. However, the capital went back on their word and intended to take it for themselves. We can't let this matter rest just like that. Jun Wuxian suddenly said, let's go to the capital. All of them gazed at Jun Wuxian, and the latter spoke softly. Not many people are aware of this now. However, they'll be aware that the treasure has fallen into the capital's hands in 2 hours at most. At that time, it would be extremely difficult for us to obtain it again. We still have a chance if we go now. The He clan's Grand Elder spoke in a low voice, but that means that we have to fight them head-on. Jun Wuxian spoke indifferently. What else can we do? Should we just suffer for nothing? The He clan's Grand Elder fell silent for a short moment before he spoke fiercely. We can't afford to suffer such a loss. Let's go to the capital. If they don't hand it over today, then we'll flatten the capital. It didn't take long for all of them to leave. Their destination was the capital. The capital. The space above the capital suddenly split open. Then, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi walked out. After they came out, Li Guangxing suddenly asked, That Yi Xian handed it over so easily? Li Guangxing nodded. Yes. Li Guangxing was silent for a moment before he sneered. It seems that this Yi Xian is also a coward. Not only is he a coward, but he's also an idiot. He actually handed over such a divine item just like that. He's really stupid beyond measure. As he spoke, he looked at Li Yunqi. Go and inform the Myriad Dimension Academy. Tell them that we've already obtained this item and ask them to send someone to retrieve it. Li Yunqi was stunned. Uncle, you're going to hand it over? Li Guangxing nodded. This item isn't something that our capital can possess. We can only hand it over. Of course, we can't hand it over for nothing. We have to ask the Worldwide Academy for those benefits. Not only that. As he spoke, his eyes narrowed. This time, we have to borrow the blade of the Worldwide Academy to kill some of our opponents. As he spoke, a smile appeared on his face. As if he had thought of something, he looked at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand. This Yi Xian isn't just an ordinary idiot. He actually doesn't know how to use such a treasure. Idiot. Chapter 861. Not far away from Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing, Yi Xian stood there quietly. He was in an empty space, so the two of them couldn't find him at all. When he heard Li Guangxing's words, Yi Xian didn't feel happy, nor did he gloat. On the contrary, Li Guangxing gave him a reminder. People often thought that they were smart, thinking that everything was under their control. They didn't know that they were in the hands of others. Don't think too highly of yourself, and don't think too highly of others. Yi Xian glanced at Li Guangxing, who was not far away, and then quietly retreated. At this time, Li Yunqi disappeared. He was heading to the Worldwide Academy. As Li Guangxing had said, Shanghai didn't have such a treasure. If Shanghai dared to take it for themselves, they wouldn't live past the next day. Although Shanghai wasn't weak, in the vast fifth dimension, Shanghai wasn't considered the top. There weren't many forces that could destroy Shanghai, but there weren't many either. Therefore, when he obtained this treasure, Li Guangxing had already decided to hand it over. Of course, he wouldn't hand it over for nothing. Shanghai could use it to obtain many benefits. Li Guangxing glanced around, a trace of doubt in his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something. Just now, someone had secretly helped him. Who was it that helped him? What was the other party's goal? Li Guangxing frowned. On the other side, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in space. He asked in his heart, Miss Lian Qian, just now I saw them use that talisman. What kind of talisman was it? A moment later, Lian Qian's voice rang out. In this world, there's a profession known as a talisman master. This kind of person can gather all sorts of powerful energies and spatial divine abilities, and then draw them into a talisman. With this kind of talisman, even if you're an ordinary person, you'll still be able to release a powerful force. There are also strong and weak talismans. From weak to strong, they are blue, red, purple, orange, and the legendary black. The higher the level of the talisman, the more power it contains. Yi Xian frowned slightly. In other words, this kind of power isn't your own? Lian Qian said. Yes. However, these runes are like your executing heaven sword. Do you think the executing heaven sword is considered your own power? Yi Xian was silent. Lian Qian continued. In the fifth dimension, there are not only talisman masters, but there are also alchemists and some refiners. These professions have extremely high statuses in the fifth dimension. In the past, before I went down, our fifth dimension already had Talisman Sect, Medicine King Sect, and Refiner Sect. These sects are extremely powerful and are only second to some special forces. Yi Xian asked, what special forces? Lian Qian said, for example the Azura Hell. Yi Xian frowned. Why is Ling a special force? The blacksmith said, I can't explain it to you either. In short, that place isn't simple. Even the current Myriad Dimension Academy doesn't dare to provoke that place. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Miss Lian Qian, what is the strongest power in the fifth dimension? Lian Qian said, it used to be the Myriad Dimension Academy because Master was there, but after Master disappeared, it might have been the Master of the fifth dimension. However, so much time has passed, so this place must have changed. Therefore I don't know. Yi Xian nodded slightly. At this time, Lian Qian said, don't look down on those runes, especially those that have reached the purple level. The power contained within these runes is extremely powerful. You might not be able to resist it. Yi Xian frowned. So powerful? Lian Qian said, it is very powerful. Take a purple power rune for example. The power it contains is not inferior to your current power. Most importantly, it only needs to consume a bit of the user's spirit qi. If you were to use a powerful power, it would consume a lot of your own spirit qi. If this goes on, you'll definitely be at a disadvantage. And if you encounter an orange rune, the power of this rune is even more powerful. You must be extremely careful when you encounter this kind of rune. Don't be careless. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Lian Qian, what rank is my Dao Law in this place? Lian Qian was silent. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lian Qian said, I almost forgot about this. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. What do you mean? Lian Qian said, runes are within the scope of laws, and Dao laws are higher than laws. To put it simply, if you have the spatial Dao law, then all spatial runes are useless against you. In other words, you can easily suppress the other party. And your Dao law is a rune that targets the power of the earth and the power of the earth veins. In any case, as long as the other party borrows the power of the earth, your Dao law can suppress them. Yi Xian suddenly asked, what about the Dao law of dreams? Lian Qian said, in this world, there are some mysterious cultivators who specialize in the power of dreams. I remember that there was a dream accessing sect in the past. This sect had asked Master many times for the Dao law of dreams, but Master didn't give it to them because the sect leader of the dream accessing sect was very ambitious. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Lian Qian, in other words, as long as you are here, any sealing runes are useless against me, right? Lian Qian said, you can say that. Yi Xian smiled slightly. At this moment, he realized how terrifying the Dao laws he possessed were. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, you have to be careful of a profession, curse masters. These people are very strange. If you encounter them, you must not underestimate them. Yi Xian was a little curious. What's a curse master? Lian Qian said, it's a rather evil profession. Back then, the founder of this profession was the Cursed Woman. She once used an extremely powerful forbidden heavenly curse technique on Master. However, she brought disgrace upon herself. In the end, she was suppressed and sealed by Master. However, this woman was also very powerful back then. Especially those curse techniques of hers, they are very strange. Because their curse techniques are based on karma, once you are entangled by them, you will be plagued by bad luck. In short, if you encounter such people, you have to be very careful. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Lian Qian continued, if there's a chance, you can find a powerful blacksmith and ask him to help you inscribe runes on your executing heaven sword. Yi Xian said in a low voice, do I need to inscribe runes on my sword too? Lian Qian said, runes can't replace your sword, but they can play a very good supporting role. For example, if there's an additional purple rune on your sword, the power of your sword will become even stronger. Or, if there's an additional rune that reduces consumption, then when you use this executing heaven sword, the consumption of spiritual energy will be greatly reduced. Yi Xian was a little curious. Can it be done like this? Lian Qian said, yes, you can try it in the future. Yi Xian nodded. He raised his head and looked not far away. At this moment, several powerful auras came from the horizon. Jun Wuxian and the others had arrived. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. The show was about to start. In the sky above Shanghai, Li Guangxing looked at the horizon. He smiled coldly, without a trace of fear. Soon, Jun Wuxian and the others appeared in front of Li Guangxing. Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing and slowly clenched his right hand. Just as he was about to attack, Li Guangxing suddenly said, everyone, do you really want to fight to the death? Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing. If this item was obtained by your Shanghai Li clan, my Qing nation would definitely not touch it. However, this item was not obtained by your Li clan alone. It was obtained by everyone together. What right does your Li clan have to keep it to yourself? Li Guangfeng said in a low voice, Jun Wuxian, if it wasn't for Yun Qi's plan, we wouldn't have been able to obtain this item. Therefore, it's only right that this item belongs to the Li family. Jun Wuxian still wanted to say something, but Lin Miaoyin suddenly spoke up, why are you wasting time with him? He's obviously trying to take it for himself. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward and squatted down. At the same time, the guqin behind her appeared in front of her. She lightly plucked it with her fingers. OM. The sound of the guqin resounded abruptly, and then the space in front of Li Guangxing was suddenly torn apart. Li Guangxing's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly stretched out his arms. After that, a pair of golden bracers appeared on his arms, and then he crisscrossed his arms and suddenly raised them forward to block the attack. Bang! 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 Numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the surroundings. Strands of white light that were as thin as a needle and thread were shuttling about incessantly around Li Guangxing, and Li Guangxing used his arms to resist them. Bang! Bang! Li Guangxing retreated repeatedly. A short moment later, he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then a ray of golden light suddenly erupted from his arms. Bang! The space in the surroundings trembled violently, and then it started to crack like a spider web. On Li Guangxing's arms were two strings that were as thin as a needle and thread. Moreover, countless cracks had appeared on Li Guangxing's golden bracers as well. The corners of Li Guangxing's mouth curled up slightly as he gazed at Lin Miaoyin. What a great sound attack! It really does live up to its reputation. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed his palms together, and the bracers suddenly fused into a golden spear. He leaped up and stabbed the spear down from midair, and then a ray of light rained down from the tip of the spear like an umbrella. Lin Miaoyin glanced up at the sky, and then she suddenly pressed her hands against the zither strings. In the next moment, she suddenly released them. Bang! A deafening sound of a zither suddenly resounded, and then a ray of white light shot into the sky and enveloped Li Guangxing within it. Rumble! The space in the surroundings trembled, and then both of them retreated repeatedly. After Li Guangxing stopped moving, he gazed at the spear in his hand, and it had completely cracked apart. He waved his right hand lightly, and then a violet talisman suddenly appeared on the spear. In next to no time, the spear started to repair itself at an extremely swift pace. Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's attack together." Jun Wuxian nodded slightly, and he was just about to attack when a formidable aura suddenly appeared in the distance. Li Guangxing suddenly roared with laughter when he noticed the formidable aura. Ha ha ha! It didn't take long for an old man in a white robe to appear in front of Li Guangxing. There was a small dimensional character on his chest. An expert from Myriad Dimension Academy. The old man gazed at Li Guangxing. "Where's the treasure?" Li Guangxing smiled. "So it's Elder Li Jinwu. Welcome to Shanghai, Elder Li." Li Jinwu gazed at Li Guangxing. "The treasure." Li Guangxing nodded slightly, and then he opened his palm. However, there was nothing in his palm. Li Guangxing frowned slightly, and then his expression changed in next to no time. The World Prison Pagoda? The pagoda? Li Guangxing's face was filled with astonishment. P.S. Because of the inspection, the update was delayed. Sorry. Chapter 862. At this moment, Li Guangxing's face was pale, and his hands were trembling. The pagoda had vanished. He didn't know how it had vanished. All he knew was that if he didn't take out the pagoda now, he would die without a complete corpse. Not only would he die without a complete corpse, but Shanghai would be dragged down as well. But why did the pagoda vanish? Li Guangxing's mind was filled with questions. Meanwhile, Li Jinwu from the Worldwide Academy frowned. "What's wrong?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "The pagoda is gone." "It's gone." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Li Jinwu was slightly stunned as well, and then his eyes narrowed slightly while a cold glint flickered within them. "Are you playing with the old man?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "Elder Li, the treasure really has vanished." "How dare you!" Li Jinwu suddenly roared furiously, and then he flicked his sleeve, causing a powerful force to sweep out. Bang! Li Guangxing instantly retreated explosively. On the other side, in the dark, Yi Xian's gaze fell on Li Jinwu, and he was somewhat shocked. This old man's strength was not ordinary. Li Guangxing felt extremely aggrieved. He knew that he and Shanghai had been schemed against. Who schemed against me? As if he'd thought of something. He suddenly gazed at Jun Wuyan and the others. "It's all of you. You're the ones who framed Shanghai." Jun Wuyan gazed at Li Guangxing. "Li Guangxing, continue your performance. We'll just watch quietly." Li Guangxing gazed at Li Jinwu. "Elder Li, They're definitely the ones who joined forces to frame Shanghai. Elder Li, please investigate this. Li Jinwu looked at Li Guangxing. You asked your Shanghai disciples to inform me that the treasure is in your hands. Just now when I asked you, you were prepared to give it to me. But now, you're telling me that they framed you. Do you think I'm stupid? Li Guangxing's expression was quite unsightly. Li Jinwu's eyes narrowed slightly. Li Guangxing, according to the old man, you're trying to take the treasure of the Worldwide Academy for yourself. The old man will give you one last chance. If you don't hand it over, then the old man will torture you today. Li Guangxing's expression was ugly to the extreme. At this moment, he felt extremely wronged. Seeing that Li Guangxing didn't speak, Li Jinwu suddenly disappeared. Li Guangxing was greatly alarmed when he saw this scene. He immediately turned around and ran. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he entered Demonic City. But in next to no time, a powerful force directly sent him flying. Everyone was stunned. An old man walked out of Demonic City. Li Guangxing, who was blasted flying, hurriedly said, "Ancestor, save me! Ancestor!" The old man in front of him was the #1 figure in Shanghai, Li Nianxing. Li Nianxing didn't look at Li Guangxing. Instead, he looked at Li Jinwu, who was not far away. Brother Li, you should know that even if you gave us 100 guts, we wouldn't dare to take this item for ourselves. Moreover, if we wanted to take this item for ourselves, we wouldn't have informed you. Li Jinwu said. Then give me an explanation. Li Nianxing nodded. Of course. As he spoke, he looked at Li Guangxing. Explain. Li Guangxing said in a low voice. It was still in my spatial ring just now. But when Elder Li came here, the treasure suddenly disappeared. Jun Wuxian sneered. Suddenly disappeared? Can't you make up a better reason? This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. Li Guangxing said in a low voice. I feel that someone is framing Demonic City. Meanwhile, Jun Wuxian shook his head. I feel that Demonic City is treating us like fools. As he spoke, he looked at Li Jinwu. Elder Li, we can all testify that the treasure is in Li Guangxing's hands. In my opinion, the Li family wants to take it for themselves. Elder Li, I suggest that we directly destroy Demonic City. Jun Wuxian. Li Guangxing stared fixedly at Jun Wuxian. You want my Li family to die so badly? What? Is the death of my Li family beneficial to you? Jun Wuxian smiled. Li Guangxing, what did you say to us before? Such a divine item, if you have the strength to obtain it, you can run away with it. Now, you called Elder Li of the Myriad Dimensional Academy over and told him that the pagoda disappeared. Are you insulting our intelligence? Li Guangxing was about to speak when Li Jinwu suddenly said, Li family, the old man doesn't want to waste words with you. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't hand over the treasure, Demonic City will disappear from this world today. Li Nianxing looked at Li Guangxing. That item, is it in your hands? Li Guangxing shook his head. It's not in my hands. When he spoke up to here, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly said, when Xueqi and I used the spatial talisman to escape earlier, someone was helping us from the shadows. It's absolutely that person who helped us. Right, it's absolutely that person who's playing tricks. Sigh. Li Nianxing shook his head and sighed. Such a divine item fell into your hands so easily. Even if you think with your toes, you should know that it's not normal. Li Guangxing slightly lowered his head. I was stupid. Li Nianxing looked at Li Jinwu. Brother Li, has this matter been resolved? Li Jinwu was about to speak when Li Nianxing suddenly said, Actually, Brother Li should also know that there's something fishy about this matter. Firstly, Yi Xian handing over the item so easily is not normal. Secondly, Yun Qi being able to bring it back so easily is also not normal. Thirdly, Guangxing isn't stupid. If he really wanted to keep the item for himself, he wouldn't have sent someone to invite Brother Li. To be honest, the life and death of Demonic City isn't important. What's important is that if we are all used by others to kill each other, then the real mastermind will definitely laugh his head off. At this point, he cupped his fists at the crowd. Everyone, we have more or less a grudge between us. However, there is indeed something fishy about today's matter. Please give my Li family a chance and let my Li family investigate this matter thoroughly. Of course, during the investigation, No one from my Li family will leave Demonic City. If we can't find anything, the old man and Xueqi are willing to pay with their lives. Hearing this, everyone was silent. Although everyone wanted Li Xueqi to die, they weren't stupid. Now that they thought about it, the matter was indeed fishy. The Worldwide Academy spent so much money but still couldn't obtain a fifth-dimensional treasure, yet a little disciple from the Li family managed to obtain it. Moreover, he even brought it back safely. Was this normal? It was definitely not normal. Could it be that someone was secretly planning all of this? Li Jinwu was also silent. He was the clearest about how much the Academy had paid for the World Prison Pagoda. Even so, the Academy still couldn't bring it back. However, this Li Yunqi from the Li family actually obtained it so easily. On the way here, he felt that something was wrong. Not far away, Li Xueqi suddenly said, "Yes, this matter itself is fishy." Speaking up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly said, "Maybe it was Yi Xian who did it." This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. This person has a meticulous mind. Furthermore, he isn't a useless person. It's impossible for him to hand over this item so easily. Yet, he handed it over so easily. There's definitely something fishy going on. I feel that he's the mastermind behind this. Perhaps he's here. Yi Xian is here? Everyone glanced at the surroundings, but they didn't notice anything. Right at this moment, Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's not talk about that for now. Li Xueqi, you said that the treasure isn't on you. Do you dare to let me search you?" Li Xueqi spoke in a low voice. "Sure." Lin Miaoyin looked at Li Jinwu, and the latter looked at Li Xueqi. Li Jinwu's gaze fell on a spatial ring on Li Xueqi's hand. He pointed at it, and the spatial ring exploded. As soon as the ring exploded, a small black pagoda appeared in front of everyone. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they saw this black pagoda. Even Li Xueqi himself was petrified. He's still here? Li Xueqi's face was filled with disbelief. This. Li Jinwu's expression instantly became ferocious when he saw the black Xiao Ta. "Li Xueqi, you actually dared to play tricks on the old man. Die for the old man." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged over. Li Xueqi's expression instantly changed when he saw Li Jinwu suddenly attack. He wasn't a match for Li Jinwu at all, so he immediately turned around and ran towards Li Nianxing. "Ancestor, save me." Meanwhile, Li Nianxing suddenly vanished. He attacked. However, he didn't attack Li Jinwu, but Li Xueqi. He was extremely swift, and Li Xueqi's head was smashed into pieces before Li Xueqi could even react. As soon as Li Xueqi's soul appeared, Li Nianxing waved his right hand, and a strand of flames enveloped Li Xueqi's soul. "Ah!" Li Xueqi's miserable and shrill cries resounded incessantly from within the flames. It didn't take long for him to vanish completely. Everyone looked at Li Nianxing. Li Nianxing sent the World Prison Pagoda to Li Jinwu. "Elder Li, this item originally belonged to the Myriad Dimension Academy. Now, it shall be returned to its rightful owner." Li Jinwu glanced at Li Nianxing. Then he put the World Prison Pagoda away before turning around and leaving. Jun Wuyan and the others fell silent when they saw Li Jinwu leave. They knew that Li Jinwu had given up on destroying the capital. Needless to say, Li Nianxing was very smart. If he didn't kill Li Xueqi, then the entire capital would be in danger. But he'd killed Li Xueqi himself, and it could be said to have calmed Li Jinwu's rage. Li Nianxing glanced at Jun Wuyan and the others. "Everyone, this item has fallen into the hands of the Myriad Dimension Academy. If you want it, then go look for them." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Jun Wuyan and the others fell silent for a moment before leaving as well. Go look for the Myriad Dimension Academy? Naturally, they did not dare to look for him. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was not Demonic City. Although the prophet was no longer around, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was still one of the top powers in the fifth dimension. In next to no time, everyone dispersed. Down below in the capital, Li Nianxing suddenly stopped and said in a light voice, "I know you're in the shadows. This matter was caused by my Li clan's greed, and my Li clan deserves it. My Li clan won't take revenge, so I hope you can be magnanimous and let my Li clan off." After a short moment, the space behind Li Nianxing trembled slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Li Nianxing slowly closed his eyes. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 863. Revenge? It wasn't that Li Nianxing hadn't thought about revenge, but he knew that he couldn't do it. He had already guessed that the person behind all of this was Yi Xian. Because if the World Prison Pagoda was so easy to obtain, why would Myriad Dimension Academy return empty-handed and issue an arrest warrant? There was only one explanation for Yi Xian handing it over so easily, and that was to divert the conflict. And Yi Xian had succeeded. If he wanted to take revenge, then Li Guangxing wouldn't be the only one who would die, but the entire Shanghai. The Li family couldn't get involved in this mess. Li Nianxing sighed softly and walked down. At this moment, he seemed to be getting older. Yi Xian didn't stay in Shanghai. Instead, he followed Li Jinwu from Myriad Dimension Academy in the dark. He knew that humans were greedy, and as long as they had greed, he could use it. Yi Xian followed him, and the two of them got closer and closer to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, Yi Xian looked at Li Jinwu with doubt in his eyes. Could this guy really be so selfless? Just at this moment, Li Jinwu suddenly stopped. In the dark, Yi Xian stopped as well. He quietly looked at Li Jinwu, who just stood there. After about 15 minutes, Li Jinwu opened his palm, and the World Prison Pagoda appeared in his hand. Looking at the World Prison Pagoda, Li Jinwu's eyes flashed with hesitation. Greed? He didn't have such thoughts. Because he knew that if he had such thoughts, he would die without a complete corpse. His position in Myriad Dimension Academy wasn't low, but if he dared to covet this item, not only would he lose his current position, he would also die a horrible death. This treasure wasn't something someone with his strength could possess. However, he was still curious. After looking at the World Prison Pagoda for a long time, the hesitation in Li Jinwu's eyes turned into determination. In the end, he chose not to think about the World Prison Pagoda. He knew that once a person opened the door to greed, it wouldn't be closed again. Thinking of this, Li Jinwu prepared to put away the World Prison Pagoda. However, at this moment, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled. Then, the door to the first level of Xiao Ta's pagoda opened. Seeing this, Li Jinwu was stunned. The tower door opened? Could it be that the prison pagoda had acknowledged him? Thinking of this, Li Jinwu was a little excited, but he forced himself to calm down. At this time, Xiao Ta slightly trembled, as if he was trying to express something. Li Jinwu hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "You want to recognize me as your master?" Xiao Ta quickly nodded. Seeing this, Li Jinwu could not help but clench his fists. At this moment, he was feeling extremely complicated. He never thought that Xiao Ta would want to recognize him as his master. Hesitation. He was very rational. He knew that once this Xiao Ta recognized him as his master, he would become a traitor of Myriad Dimension Academy. At that time, his enemies would spread throughout the entire fifth dimension. Could they have this tower? Reason told him that he couldn't accept it. However, on the contrary, this was also a great opportunity. This was a treasure left behind by a prophet. If he could obtain it, he would definitely obtain great fortune. Hesitation. At this moment, he was unprecedentedly conflicted. At this time, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled, and then lightly floated in front of him, lightly rubbing against his hand. It was very intimate. He could feel that this Xiao Ta was very eager to recognize him as his master. In the same place, Li Jinwu was silent for a very long time. Finally, he slowly closed his eyes. About a quarter of an hour later, he suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head to look at the horizon and softly said, "In life, we often need to gamble." With that, he grabbed the World Prison Pagoda, turned around, and disappeared into the boundless horizon. This direction was completely opposite to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, the corner of Yi Xian's mouth slightly rose. He looked at the crystal ball in his hand. Just now, he had used this crystal ball to record everything that had just happened. At this time, Lian Qian's voice suddenly resounded in his mind. "You're really bad." Yi Xian laughed. "They're worse than me, aren't they?" Lian Qian said, "You still need to focus on increasing your strength." Yi Xian nodded. "I know." As he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately asked, "Miss Lian Qian, how are the realms in the fifth dimension divided? Or is it the same as the fourth dimension?" Lian Qian said, "Of course it's different. The realms in the fifth dimension are a bit more complicated than the realms in the fourth dimension. Yi Xian said, Miss Lian Qian, please enlighten me. Lian Qian softly said, at the beginning of heaven and earth, all living things were born. Vitality began to sprout, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, distributing vitality, giving birth to harmony. This is how humans are. Humans have 8 extraordinary meridians, which are born in the body. The number of meridians is innumerable. They harmonize the center, which is the source of spirit. Those who are capable can comprehend the order of the 4 seasons of heaven and earth, learn the breathing method of the 8 extraordinary meridians, close their eyes, and enter the path of cultivation. They can see the location of their body and soul, which is as small as a grain in the sky, but as bright as the universe. Only then can they cleanse their heart and change their marrow. Speaking up to this point, she slightly paused, then continued. The realms here are related to the 8 extraordinary meridians of a person. I won't tell you about the lower realms. The primordial realm, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, understanding life and death, breaking through the mysteries of heaven, understanding karma, and entering the cycle of reincarnation. Your realm in the fourth dimension is the life-breaking realm. Here, in terms of battle strength, it's equivalent to this world's cosmos realm. Strictly speaking, it's not even that. Of course, your battle strength has at least reached the yin-yang realm. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, what does establishing the universe mean? Lian Qian said, Qian is the sky, and Kuan is the earth. Qian Kuan refers to heaven and earth. Establishing the universe means that you have a certain understanding of heaven and earth. For example, you know how spiritual qi is formed, how space is formed, and the nature of all living things. You're equivalent to a cosmos realm now. However, you're a swordsman, and a swordsman who has broken through to the next realm. In addition, you have the executing heaven sword, the soul-suppressing sword, the special bloodline, and your body. Therefore, your battle strength is not lower than a yin-yang realm expert. However, if you meet a life and death realm expert, you're no match for him. Yi Xian asked, what realm is Chen Tian? Lian Qian said, at least heaven's secret. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked again, what about the woman in the plain dress? The woman in the plain dress. Lian Qian was silent. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lian Qian said softly, she can even sever karma. Therefore she's at least. No, she can't be measured by realm. She's not within the rules. So, please don't ask me such stupid questions next time. Otherwise, I'll hit you. Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Qian continued, you have to remember that one's cultivation level isn't everything. Take you for example. You're very deceptive because your cultivation level is low, but your battle prowess is high. Of course, it's because of your bloodline and that set of godly equipment you have. Yi Xian nodded. Zhang Xian nodded. I understand. Lian Qian continued, other than that, there are some special professions, such as those spellmasters and some talisman masters. In short, don't underestimate anyone. Underestimate? Yi Xian shook his head. How could he dare to underestimate others? Unbeknownst to him, people often died because they underestimated their enemies. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian turned around and left. This matter wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just the beginning. The current him couldn't face these experts from the fifth dimension head-on. Myriad Dimensional Academy. Myriad Dimensional Academy was built on a cliff that was tens of thousands of meters high. This cliff was the famous ocean cliff of the fifth dimension. It was also the place where the Prophet established Myriad Dimensional Academy. There were countless worldwide academies, but there was only one Myriad Dimensional Academy, and that was this place. This place could be said to be the holy land in the hearts of countless worldwide academy students. Somewhere in the library, Chen Tian was sitting quietly. In his hand was an ancient book. At this time, an old man quietly appeared not far from Chen Tian. The old man said softly, entering the martial realm disappeared. It can be confirmed. After a moment of silence, Chen Tian said softly, greed. The old man said softly, yes, I shouldn't have let him go. I should have gone myself. Chen Tian shook his head. Entering the martial realm has followed you for so many years. You should be very clear about his personality. He isn't the kind of person who can't resist temptation. There's something fishy about this matter. The old man nodded. That Yi Xian handed over the world prison pagoda so easily. This matter is extremely strange. According to my investigation, although this person is a swordsman, he is very cunning and often uses despicable methods. This time, he must be playing some kind of trick. After saying this, he paused and said, "If I'm not wrong, he might have already arrived in the fifth dimension." Chen Tian smiled. This person is quite scheming. Interesting. The old man said in a deep voice. "What should we do now?" Chen Tian said softly, "Find Jin Wu. Of course, find him secretly. Don't let others know that he has already left my 10,000 Dimensions Academy with the World Prison Pagoda." The old man nodded. If others knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the World Prison Pagoda, needless to say, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. At that time, the matter would become even more chaotic. The old man turned around and left. Chen Tian stood up and looked in front of him. There was a portrait in front of him. It was the portrait of the plain-clothed woman. Chen Tian looked at the portrait of the plain-clothed woman and said with a smile, "Don't you like to play chess? Then I'll accompany you. This Yi Xian's life is mine. No one can protect him." Qingshan City. This was a small city that didn't belong to any faction. On this day, a man came to the small city. This man was Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked around. There weren't many people in the city. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that he found that there was no difference between the people here and the people in the fourth dimension. Yi Xian came to the center of the city. This place was quite bustling. There were many people and they were all cultivators. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a crystal ball flew out from his hand. The crystal ball flew into the air, and in next to no time, a scene appeared on the battlefield. It was the scene of Li Jinwu fleeing with the World Prison Pagoda. There was even sound, and it was exactly the same. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at the scene revealed by the crystal ball. Yi Xian smiled and turned around to leave. At this moment, he suddenly frowned. Beside him, a sharp gaze was staring at him. P.S. Your monthly votes are mine. Chapter 864. Yi Xian turned around and saw a man standing not far away. No, it was a woman. However, she was dressed as a man. The woman had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Her gaze was as sharp as a blade, giving off an invisible pressure. Yi Xian ignored her and turned to leave. In the distance, the woman's lips curled up. Interesting. After saying that, she followed him. Yi Xian left the town. He had achieved his goal. He knew that it wouldn't be long before many people in the fifth dimension knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the treasure. As a result, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. As long as there were people looking for Li Jinwu, his goal would be achieved. After Yi Xian left the small town, he walked towards the deep mountains in the distance. The woman followed behind him. She was brazenly following him. After entering the mountains, Yi Xian stopped. Behind him the woman smiled. This place is not bad. It's a good place to kill. Yi Xian turned to look at the woman. You are. The woman smiled. Xiahou Jin. Yi Xian said. Why do you keep following me? The woman sized up Yi Xian and smiled. How should I address you? Yi Xian said. Why do you keep following me? The woman stopped not far from Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You are Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned. He was shocked. The person in front of him knew his true identity. Who was this person? Without thinking too much, Yi Xian clenched his right hand. He was filled with killing intent. Xiahou Jin smiled. Young Master Yi wants to kill me to silence me? Yi Xian was silent. Xiahou Jin smiled. Young Master Yi, since I dared to follow you, do you think I would be afraid of you killing me? Of course. Let me state that I have nothing to do with the Worldwide Academy. Moreover, I'm not young Master Ye's enemy. How did you know my identity? Yi Xian asked softly. This was what he was most curious about. Xiahou Jin said with a smile, I also have some understanding of Li Yunqi from the Li family. Among the younger generation of the Li family, he is considered a well-known figure. However, in my opinion, he still doesn't have the ability to obtain the fifth-dimensional treasure. And he got it, and he even got it so easily. There's only one explanation. And that's young Master Yi gave it to him on purpose. Yi Xian said. How can you be so sure? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, because I've investigated young Master Yi. Young Master Yi had come this far from being an unpopular disciple of a small family. How could he be an ordinary person? Moreover, according to my investigation, young Master Yi's strength should far surpass that of Li Yunqi and the rest. Moreover, young Master Yi isn't the kind of person who's afraid of death. Therefore, young Master Yi took the initiative to hand over this item. It's obvious that he wants to shift the conflict. Young Master Yi is protecting himself, and also protecting the four-dimensional universe. Yi Xian was silent. Xiahou Jin continued, now, young Master Yi has played the worldwide academy in the palm of his hand through this pagoda. I have to say, young Master Yi is really amazing. If my guess is correct, the fifth-dimensional treasure has already recognized young Master Yi as its master. Because without its cooperation, it's impossible for young Master Yi to use it. Yi Xian was still silent. However, a ray of sword light had already appeared in his palm. He wasn't a merciful person. If he met someone who deserved to be killed, he definitely wouldn't be lenient. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, young Master Yi, let me give you a piece of advice. Do you want to hear it? Yi Xian said. Speak. Xiahou Jin said. These plans of yours are very good, and they've all succeeded. However, those big shots must have already seen through your schemes. And they, including the Worldwide Academy, must have already guessed that you're the mastermind behind all this. Yi Xian smiled and said, and then? Xiahou Jin was about to speak, but suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, this isn't a conspiracy at all, it's an open conspiracy. As long as they want that treasure, as long as they're greedy, they'll fall into your trap. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and didn't say anything. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, young Master Yi, you're playing with fire. Yi Xian said softly, Miss Xiahou, if I'm not wrong, you and I didn't meet by chance. You came to find me on purpose, right? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, yes. Yi Xian said, Miss Xiahou, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. As you know, I'm a little busy right now. Xiahou Jin smiled slightly and said, young Master Yi, I want to make a deal with you. Yi Xian nodded and said, tell me about it. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, we want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing in this pagoda. Tao laws of sealing. Lian Qian. Yi Xian said, you want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing? Xiahou Jin nodded and said, yes. Yi Xian said, what can I get in return? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, you'll get an ally. Yi Xian shook his head and said, give me something practical. Ally? He didn't believe her. Some people could share riches, but they couldn't share hardships. Moreover, he completely believed that this person in front of him and the people behind him wouldn't become enemies with the Worldwide Academy because of him. Therefore, it was better to give him some practical benefits. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, how about this? 2 purple talismans. Purple talismans. Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Qian suddenly said, ask her for an orange talisman. Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin and said, I want an orange talisman. Xiahou Jin shook her head and said, young Master Yi, we're just borrowing your Tao laws of sealing, not asking for them. Aren't you asking for too much? Yi Xian turned around and left. At this moment, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, young Master Yi, I think the Worldwide Academy would be very interested in your whereabouts. Yi Xian suddenly disappeared as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. Xiahou Jin frowned slightly and looked around. However, she didn't find Yi Xian. Yi Xian disappeared? Xiahou Jin used her divine sense to sweep the surroundings once more, but she still didn't find Yi Xian. Right at this moment, a strand of sword light suddenly appeared behind Xiahou Jin. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she forcefully flashed over 30 m to the right. However, one of her arms had flown off. However, the space she was in had exploded apart, and the force of the explosion caused Yi Xian to retreat repeatedly. In the distance, Xiahou Jin, who'd lost an arm, gazed at Yi Xian. She was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished, and a strand of sword light instantly appeared in front of her. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw this scene. She tapped the tip of her foot lightly, and a green light flashed beneath her feet. When Yi Xian's sword arrived before her, she'd vanished. Yi Xian's sword stabbed air, and he immediately turned invisible. Both of them had vanished. But right at this moment, the space in the surroundings suddenly trembled, and Xiahou Jin's expression changed drastically. Spatial Dao Law. She just finished speaking when the space in front of her split apart, and then a strand of sword light stabbed out. What a swift sword strike! Xiahou Jin was shocked. She suddenly pushed her fair hand forward, and a violet talisman appeared at the center of her palm. There was a huge word inscribed on the talisman. Defend. At the instant that Yi Xian's sword stabbed over, the word defend suddenly transformed into a shield of light that blocked in front of her. Bang! Along with an explosion, the shield of light exploded apart, and Xiahou Jin was blasted back. Xiahou Jin was shocked when she saw this scene. She hadn't expected that a single strike of Yi Xian's sword would actually destroy her defensive violet talisman. Yi Xian's sword. Xiahou Jin's expression became extremely solemn as she gazed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. The sword in Yi Xian's hand wasn't an ordinary sword at all. Xiahou Jin hurriedly said when she saw that Yi Xian was about to attack again, "Young Master Yi, my words were rude just now. Young Master Yi, please forgive me." However, Yi Xian didn't hold back. This time, Xiahou Jin didn't dodge. When Yi Xian's sword was still 1.5 m away from her, she suddenly said, "I'll give you the orange talisman." Yi Xian's sword stopped moving, and he looked at Xiahou Jin. "Give it to me," Xiahou Jin said in a low voice. "It's not on me." As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xian's sword stabbed half an inch into the space between her brows. Meanwhile, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, "I can give it to you." Yi Xian put his sword away and glanced coldly at Xiahou Jin. "Are you trying to paint a picture for me?" Xiahou Jin said in a low voice, "I mean what I say." At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. "We have no intention of becoming enemies with you. We just want to cooperate with you. Believe me, if we cooperate, it will be very beneficial to you." Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. "Cooperation is fine, but I don't like it when others threaten me." Xiahou Jin nodded. "I understand." At this moment, she realized that she had seriously underestimated Yi Xian's strength. Yi Xian was much stronger than what she had investigated, at least a few times stronger. Xiahou Jin said softly, "Brother Yi, follow me." Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and said in his heart, "Miss Lian Qian, is it worth the risk?" Lian Qian said, "An orange talisman is completely worth it. Moreover, you have the immeasurable sword. If things go south, you can leave at any time." Yi Xian nodded slightly and followed her. On the way, Xiahou Jin suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Yi, may I ask if the treasure of the fifth dimension has really recognized you as its master?" Yi Xian said, "Miss Xiahou, we are only cooperating, right?" Xiahou Jin nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Then don't ask so much. Also, I want to obtain that orange talisman first." Xiahou Jin was silent for a moment before nodding. "Sure." Not long after, the two of them arrived in front of an ancient city. The city walls were covered with all kinds of mysterious runes. In addition, there was a huge rune in the sky above the city. The entire city looked extremely eerie. Seeing this city, Yi Xian frowned slightly. What was this place? Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. "What do you want me to do?" Xiahou Jin said, "I hope that Brother Yi can help us remove a seal." Yi Xian asked again, "What seal?" Xiahou Jin smiled. "Brother Yi will know when the time comes." With that, she quickened her pace. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin before following her. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, "This place is a bit strange. Be careful." Yi Xian nodded. He suddenly stopped. At this moment, Xiahou Jin turned to look at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi?" Yi Xian said, "Miss Xiahou, I want that orange talisman." Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. At this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared on the scene. Yi Xian opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. "I can't stop once I start killing." Chapter 865. Xiahou Jin, who stood across from Yi Xian, glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "I told you we have no ill intent towards young Master Yi." She turned to look to her right as she spoke. "Grandfather, I've already promised to give him an orange talisman, and he'll help us remove the seal. Meanwhile, an old man walked over from the right. The old man walked over and stood over 10 m away from Yi Xian. Remove the seal first. Yi Xian shrugged, turned around, and left. The old man frowned slightly when he saw this, and he was about to attack when Xiahou Jin suddenly shook her head. The old man fell silent for a moment, and then he flicked his finger, causing an orange talisman to appear in front of Yi Xian. An orange talisman. Yi Xian glanced at the talisman in front of him. Senior, what talisman is this? Lian Qian replied. I'll study it for you. Even Senior doesn't know? It's not like I know everything. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the old man in front of Yi Xian spoke abruptly. I wonder if you're able to make a move now? Yi Xian looked at the old man and nodded. Take me there. The old man turned around and left. Yi Xian followed, and it didn't take long for the three of them to arrive before an old well. Yi Xian glanced at the mouth of the well. The mouth of the well was covered in black talisman markings, and there were 4 pitch-black iron chains around the mouth of the well. The iron chains were thick like pillars, and they sunk into the mouth of the well. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What's this? The old man glanced at Yi Xian. There's an extremely powerful seal within the mouth of the well. You just have to remove the seal, and everything else has nothing to do with you. Yi Xian glanced at the mouth of the well, and he could faintly hear roars coming from within. Yi Xian said in his heart, Miss Lian Qian, can you remove the seal? Lian Qian replied, There's no seal in this world that I can't remove. Once the seal is undone, leave quickly. Yi Xian asked, Why? Lian Qian said, The aura in this dry well is very strong and very evil. It's definitely not a good person. Once the seal is lifted, you should leave immediately. Don't get involved in these troublesome matters. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Senior, make your move. As soon as he finished speaking, the space between his eyebrows suddenly split open. Immediately after, a ray of white light suddenly surged out from between his eyebrows. This ray of white light instantly entered the dry well. When this white light entered the dry well, the black runes around the dry well actually began to dim. At the same time, the chains began to shake violently. The old man's expression instantly became slightly excited when he saw this. A moment later, the black runes around the dry well suddenly disappeared. Boom! A powerful aura surged out from the well and into the sky. Lian Qian's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Retreat! Without any hesitation, Yi Xian turned around and ran. He was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. At the moment when Yi Xian disappeared, a man floated out from the dry well. The man's entire body was blood-red, and in his hands, there were 2 blood-red spheres floating. When he saw this person, the old man hurriedly knelt down on one knee. Xiahou family's 107th generation descendant, Xiahou Wu, greets the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor looked at the horizon and said softly, What a special bloodline. As he spoke, he looked at Xiahou Wu, who was in front of him. Who was that person just now? The Blood Emperor said in a deep voice. Yi Xian. The Blood Emperor slowly closed his eyes. I want the power of his bloodline to find him. Hearing this, Xiahou Wu hesitated for a moment before he said, This Yi Xian is not simple. He's very complicated, the Blood Emperor suddenly said. I'll take care of everything. Xiahou Wu didn't say anything else. He immediately nodded and left with Xiahou Jin. At this moment, the Blood Emperor said, Your Xiahou family has protected me for many years. Now that I've come into being, the Xiahou family will naturally receive benefits. As he spoke, he waved his right hand, and numerous spatial rings fell in front of Xiahou Wu. Xiahou Wu glanced at them, and he was wild with joy. He hurriedly knelt down on one knee again. My Xiahou family is willing to go through fire and water for the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor nodded slightly. Find that person just now. Xiahou Wu hurriedly said. Understood. After he spoke, he left with Xiahou Jin. After the 2 of them left, the Blood Emperor looked at the horizon again. What a pity. I shouldn't have hesitated just now. On the other side, Xiahou Jin said in a deep voice. Father, if we go find trouble with Yi Xian, it means that we'll be embroiled in the current dispute. Xiahou Wu said softly. There's no other way. We only have one way out now, and that is to cling tightly to the Blood Emperor. Xiahou Jin still wanted to say something, but Xiahou Wu suddenly said, "Leave the Xiahou family." Xiahou Jin looked at Xiahou Wu. Xiahou Wu said softly, "My Xiahou family has no choice but to be embroiled in this dispute, but you can't. Leave the Xiahou family. Do you understand what I mean?" Xiahou Jin was silent. Xiahou Wu looked at Xiahou Jin. "When I saw that Yi Xian just now, I knew that he wasn't simple. He was able to make the tower recognize him as its master, and he could even subdue the law of the tower. This person is unfathomable. However, I don't regret releasing the Blood Emperor's seal, because to our Xiahou family, this is also an opportunity." Xiahou Jin nodded slightly. "I know." Xiahou Wu said, "The World Prison Tower has reappeared in the five-dimensional universe. This means that the Prophet may reappear in the world." The Prophet. Hearing this, Xiahou Jin's expression became solemn. Although she wasn't from the same era as the Prophet, she had heard of the legends of the Prophet. In the past, the Prophet was in the five-dimensional universe. At that time, there was order and justice in the five-dimensional universe, but now, everything was based on strength. Whoever's fist was bigger was the one who made the right. Xiahou Jin shook her head then said, "Father, take care." After saying this, she turned and left. She knew that she was a trump card left by the Xiahou family. If the Xiahou family won, it would naturally be good. But if the Xiahou family lost, then she was the hope for the Xiahou family to make a comeback. Seeing Xiahou Jin disappear at the end of the road, Xiahou Wu also turned and left. On the other side, after Yi Xian left the Xiahou family, he found a place to hide, then took out the orange-colored talisman. "Miss Lian Qian, what type of talisman is this?" Lian Qian said, "A strength talisman, try it." Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. "How do I activate it?" Lian Qian said, "It's very simple. Enter it with your divine sense and control the talisman. Then activate it. You can borrow the power of the talisman." Hearing this, Yi Xian did as he was told. Very quickly, the strength talisman in his hand suddenly turned into a ray of light and entered his arm. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the clothes on Yi Xian's arm were directly turned to ash. Yi Xian suddenly clenched his fist. At this moment, he felt that his arm contained boundless power. This power was so strong that it had already surpassed the strength of his physical body. This was the first time that Yi Xian had seen the power of this talisman, and he had to admit that it was truly powerful. At this moment, he felt that he could kill a fate-breaker expert with a single punch. Invincible confidence. Lian Qian suddenly said, "This talisman is only a low-grade orange talisman. If it was a high-grade orange talisman or a top-grade orange talisman, then it would be even more terrifying." Yi Xian nodded. "It's indeed powerful. However, it's still an external object in the end. It's not my own strength, so I can't rely too much on it." Lian Qian smiled. "It's good that you think that way." Yi Xian put the talisman away, and then he looked at the horizon and said softly, "It's time to go see that Elder Li from Myriad Dimension Academy." After saying that, he disappeared. Because of the crystal ball that Yi Xian had placed in the city, he wasn't the only one looking for Li Jinwu. Many other powers were also looking for Li Jinwu. Now, everyone knew that the World Prison Pagoda was in Li Jinwu's hands. Moreover, Li Jinwu hadn't returned to the Worldwide Academy, but had instead escaped with the treasure. Simply put, whoever found Li Jinwu, the treasure would belong to that person. Because of the World Prison Pagoda, Yi Xian was able to easily find Li Jinwu. At this moment, Li Jinwu was hiding in a cave. His aura was completely concealed, and he had concealed himself extremely well. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had entered the realm of emptiness. Therefore, even though he was very close to Li Jinwu couldn't discover him. Inside the cave, Li Jinwu held the World Prison Pagoda in his hands. He seemed to have gone mad, and his eyes were filled with undisguised excitement. The treasure of the fifth dimension. The treasure of the Prophet. Li Jinwu held the World Prison Pagoda. "I must control this pagoda." As he spoke, he pointed with his finger and a drop of blood essence entered the World Prison Pagoda. The World Prison Pagoda slightly trembled, as if in response. Seeing this, Li Jinwu became excited. At this moment, a powerful aura assaulted him from outside the cave. Yi Xian looked outside the cave. He was somewhat astonished. He hadn't expected that someone would be able to find Li Jinwu so quickly. He had wanted to warn the powers of the fifth dimension. Inside the cave, Li Jinwu immediately put away the world prison pagoda and looked outside the cave. At this moment, the cave door in front of him exploded. No, it should be said that the place he was hiding in had exploded. Li Jinwu looked in front of him. Not far away from him stood a black-clothed man. The black-clothed man's entire body was shrouded in black, and there was a mysterious power enveloping his body. It was impossible to see his true appearance. Li Jinwu stared at the black-clothed man. "Your Excellency, could it be that you don't know that I'm an elder of the Worldwide Academy?" In the distance, the black-clothed man sneered. "Worldwide Academy? Li Jinwu, you secretly took the treasure of the Worldwide Academy and fled. You actually dare to call yourself an elder of the Worldwide Academy? You really have a lot of face." Hearing this, Li Jinwu frowned. "How did you know?" The black-clothed man laughed. "How did I know? Right now, everyone in the world knows. Li Jinwu, the old man will give you a chance. Hand over the pagoda and the old man will spare your life. Otherwise..." At this moment, Li Jinwu suddenly turned around and fled. He didn't choose to attack, because if he did, he might attract even more experts. Right now, he only had one choice, and that was to flee. However, he hadn't even taken a few steps when another old man appeared in front of him. Li Jinwu was just about to speak when the old man suddenly spread out his right hand and pressed it down lightly. Bang! The space where Li Jinwu was directly collapsed. As for Li Jinwu, his soul was completely destroyed. He had been instantly killed. In the darkness, Yi Xian was silent. He knew that a true big shot had appeared.